Hello and welcome. It's time for the Hawks Nest live stream show. Oh, we're going to light some people up today a little bit, aren't we, with that thumbnail? We're going to get some people freaked out today with that thumbnail. No, nothing is imminent, but no, this is also not clickbait type stuff we're dealing with here. Just a week after Devante Adams reset the wide receiver market as far as salary goes in his trade to the Las Vegas Raiders, or it was Oakland Raiders, Los Angeles Raiders, I can't ever seem to remember. Then only mere week later, the Kansas City Chiefs seemed to balk at their game-changing dynamo, the Cheetah. Moving him on to the Miami Dolphins for an assembly of draft picks, including a first and a second and some others. But shocking and surprising in the NFL world once again this offseason, as it has been one of the craziest off seasons I think we've seen here in the NFL of recent note. Certainly here in Seattle, it's been fun, hasn't it, folks? Woo! Woo! Get on the ride. It's going to be fun. Eventually, we'll get strapped in. Eventually, we'll feel like there's a safety harness on us, but we're just going to have to buckle up right now. So there has been thought that goes into this particular thumbnail and this subject I want to lead with off the top of the show. As always, I just want to say to everyone, if you like the show, please hit the like button as well. If you can hold off on any questions out the gate, because I'm going to miss usually the first top of the comments because we're getting hundreds and hundreds of people in here on the chat now. So please, just if you can hold off, you certainly talk amongst your others, but if I might, I'll miss a question at the top now the way the chat's just running off. And I don't want to get too far behind in the chat today because I can't go super long today. We're going to be doing Brendan's thing tomorrow with him, so we'll be doing a back-to-back shows here. But this is not a clickbait situation. Tyreek Hill's been moved. Kansas City Chief fans, I'm sure, would have told you up and down at the start of the year, there's no way we'd ever move from Tyreek Hill. He's a game changer. You don't move on from this type of talent. Halfway into the year, say, no, we don't. You'll move on. Still good. Into the playoffs, in that Buffalo game, which I watched and I know you watched, where he was marvelous. You'd ask a Chiefs fan, no, we ain't moving. We'd never move on from this guy. I'd never want to move on from this guy. But then we see their front office moving. We see the Green Bay Packers moving, though they were reportedly at least willing to offer the same contract that the Vegas Raiders were. Devante just didn't want to play in the snow no more. And who can blame him? You know, negative 30 degrees every other game. Yeah, I think I'll go to a warm weather spot. That sounds better. So this brings us along to DK. And you hear this last week, Carol asked about the question of DK's contract, and quite frankly now, because we're starting to get a good feel for this new parsing of Pete, aren't we? It doesn't feel as familiar as the old Pete. There's a little bit of like, I feel a little hedge. It feels a little hedgy in his words. I don't see definitive. I don't see bombastic. Oh, this guy's a cornerstone for us. You don't move on from that. You build from that. You pay that. He's come out 3 straight years like a warrior on this football field, played every game, been productive the whole time, double teamed as much as any wide receiver in the sport last year, but still right there with them as far as that same kind of game-changing talent as any other wide receiver in this game. And yet, we'd like to be good to. Just didn't do it. There was nothing in his wording that was telling me, yeah, we will. It will get done. We'd like to get it done before training camp, but if we don't, whatever. And I hope this is not the approach, because I'm going to speak mostly in this opening segment to what is the overall read of the situation without bias, without saying I want this or I want that. What I personally want is DK Metcalf to remain here as a Seattle Seahawks. I do believe he is a cornerstone. I think there becomes a point of diminishing returns when you're in a fire sale to where you're just trying to grab as many picks as you can, and you're losing a little bit of a locker room feel there. And we'll go into more reasons why I think it's smart to sign DK, but I'm on board with that. So don't take this as me saying that this is what this should do. This is what the front office is faced with at the moment. Put DK on his next contract. Let's go rough numbers here. 4 years, $100 million, $50 million guaranteed. Something along those lines. We were hoping maybe we could get under $20 million at the start of the offseason. There's no way near we're coming in near that at that point. To me, it looks like you're going to be right around anywhere from $22 to $25 million, if not on up in this deal. Tyreek's new deal reaches anywhere, and it's kind of funny money, and this new contract of Tyreek is all over the place as far as the signing bonuses, when they kick in, and how they're moving all the numbers around to get him to the average $30 million per that he was trying to reach on that deal. But it does mean that you're not going to get DK now around the 19 mark. So 4 years, $100 million, $25 million a season at that point, $50 million guaranteed. That's $12.5 million on the first 4 years per every year on just signing bonus alone. Then you've got the veteran minimum base salary on top of that, at least in this first year, because we're trying to lower the first year cap hit down. And you're going to be talking about, at that point, roughly about $14 million or so his hit in 2022. This is off $3.4 million, which is due to be his cap hit right now. Again, this is what the front office is faced with. This is not what I want to see happen, but you've got to believe right now, as they've shown a willingness to move off from guys, even productive guys this offseason. And Dunlap goes with only a $900,000 saving. I mean, as much as they want to scream and shout to us about how much they're trying to be a contender next year, all the signs do seem to leading towards the rebuild. And if that's the case, they are considering this right now as they are in these negotiations with DK, and we don't know how high up the numbers are. He's pushing. Certainly Kansas City got to a place with Tyreek where they said, we love you. You're awesome. You're an all-timer with this organization, but there's no way in hell we're paying you $30 million a year. Can't do it. Won't do it. That's quarterback costs. So DK that first year goes up significantly in cost versus what he costs right now. And this is pertinent because of the fact you're sitting on about $16 million of cap space with all of your dollar store shopping and 1 year deals that you've handed out, 2 year deals that you've handed out, with a lot of cap hit in the first year of those contracts. So this means that you're then going to have to create more cap space then to fit DK into the roster. And you certainly have some places you can move. Jason Myers could be cut at any point in time for $4 million. LJ Collier could save you $1 million. You can do some other things, right? You can make some other moves. And Kitty, sorry, you got to drop down. But do they want to? Are they looking around the situation in the landscape, the NFL, and they're going, well, I don't think this is smart to pay this cost. Is paying $25 million to a receiver not maybe the equivalent of paying 15% and on up to the quarterback position? I think this is what is the debate at hand, and I think it's a good debate. I think both sides come from an intellectual standpoint on this in how they look at the situation. You're not going to find a talent like DK coming down the track. Get all the picks you want. Good luck finding another DK like that. Yeah, but still got a little bit of injury situation that's popped up, and we've been lucky with that for the first 3 years. His value is never going to be higher. Again, who's paying their receiver $25 million and more and having an elite football team out there? Well, yeah, but there's been some pretty elite football team. You go back and forth. This is why I think it's a good debate. I land one way on one side of this, but I do think it's a good debate. And I think that people are on the other side of it that do advocate for saying maybe it is smarter to go to the moving the DK and getting the first round picks. Kansas City right now is sitting on 2 first round picks in this draft at the end of the first round. And many of you are going to go, well, wait. You're telling me DK is going to get more in draft capital than Tyreek Hill? Come on, man. Stupid. Why are you even doing this channel? God, bro. Yeah, he is. He is. And let me tell you why. Tyreek is much closer to the age of 30 than DK is. DK is right around 25 years old here, just entering into his prime, just getting there. And the other thing about this is cost. Tyreek's going to want this $30 million payday he got in this contract. DK, I'm pretty sure, is going to be pretty happy with $25 million on average per. And reportedly, again, Kansas City was pretty close in the negotiations to what they were willing to offer Tyreek. They just weren't willing to go up over the top of the mountainside. We'll go up to one near your peaks here, Tyreek. We'll get to one of the peaks, not the top of the peaks, or summits. We'll get to one of your summits, not your peak. Miami went to the peak. I don't think DK is going to try to go to the peak. I think DK is going to be okay with the summit. This is his first big payday. They're going to offer probably a little bit more than even maybe Seattle's sitting on right now, because I think Seattle's probably trying to sit low 20s on their offering, which is maybe why this deal hasn't been done already. But they come in and offer Seattle 2 first-round picks. Now you have 3 first-round picks in this draft, 2 second-round picks in this draft, 2 first-round picks in next year's draft. It's quite a war chest, as I'm liking to use this term, a war chest of draft picks to then build your team going forward. Again, I'm not advocating for this move. I don't want to see this move, but I've got to consider the fact that this is probably some of the intense negotiations or thought processes that are going on behind the scenes in the front office right now about what is the best way to go. When you have a rebuilding team, should you be paying a receiver this amount? What is the returns on that? And again, my landing on this is that you should. He is so young as he's being due for this contract, that he could sign this contract extension, be very productive for us in that time as we're building the team along. And by the time you're really ready to take off at that point, he's still well under 30 years old. He's still going to be due up another contract at that point, where then you can make the determination at that time if you want to move him, if you want him to stay, how you want to go about the situation at that point. You don't need to determine this now, I guess is what I'm kind of saying. And I think that he's worth the money. He's had the best first 3 years of any Seattle Seahawks receiver in the history of the Seahawks organization. And that is saying something with guys like Largent and Galloway, who have come through these halls and had absolutely amazing starts to their career. He's been that good. And I spoke about a second ago, those people that go, well, look, last year he disappears and he's double teamed as much as any defender in football, as much as any receiver in football. Last year, 28.5% was the highest in football that any receiver was double teamed. That was Devante Adams. DK Metcalf was double teamed at 27.5%. And I know then the next question that'll come up from those folks who then are trying to throw the shade, well, they'll say, yeah, but Devante Adams still gets his catches. Devante Adams still gets his yards. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers is a lot more willing to throw into double teams than Russell Wilson was. That's the bottom line. And if Russell wasn't willing to throw those trust throws into there, I mean, Devante Adams got better hands than DK, I'll give you that. Maybe DK has a couple more drops in there than DK, but again, we saw it over and over at times. When the double teams came DK's way, Russell started to look other directions. He just go, okay, I've got a double team here, so something else on the other part of the football field should be freed up. It's not a totally asinine way for Russell to go. I mean, you're going more through the path of least resistance than pushing into it, whereas Rodgers has no other receiver to throw to, so he's like, it's you or nobody, buddy. I got to let this rip. I got to let her go. So we'll see what you guys think on the chat on this. I'm not torn on this in any way, shape, or form. But again, with the way this offseason's gone, with where our franchise is, looking at now us, it looks like to me pretty firmly along the rebuilding path. We didn't sign Trent Brown. I guess the dungeon didn't work. He was let loose. Somebody gave him a key. Nobody knows. I've heard they're blaming scouts maybe or something. I don't know how it went, but he got let out. So now he went back to New England, used us for leverage, got a better deal back with New England Patriots. Good for him. We're now sitting without really two legitimate tackles on either side. We've really not done anything to truly upgrade the offensive line as it stands, despite, again, the fact that the offensive line for the last couple of years now has been predominantly one of our worst position groups on the football team, if not the worst position group on the football team. I guess maybe they're just planning on like the first 3 picks going to the offensive line. Maybe that's their approach. They certainly have been willing in the past to go to offensive line. All right, I'm going to go over here to the chat. Again, this is going to be a different, in a second here, 1 second on the chat. It will be a shorter show today. I'm sorry for that, folks. Just got a lot of work going on the plate in the background on this. So we will be back tomorrow with Brendan going live. And so we'll get back on with him, doing some draft talking a little bit, of course, this free agent period a bit. The other bit of news that came down the track just before we get in the chat is Justin Coleman was re-signed today, just before I went live. Justin Coleman, of course, is a former Seahawk who had a great season out of the slot. I think had a pick 6 return. I think it might have been that Kansas City game at home back in. He had a great year that year. Man, it was Detroit. But anyway, he played very good for us. Seattle had picked him up via trade. Fantastic season. Balled out. Got himself a contract with Detroit at that point. Did okay for them in the first year. Second year was a little bit rough. And then last year he was with Miami and it wasn't very good. To give you a basic breakdown on this, that 2018 season with Seattle, he posted a 69.3 grade. He had 73 targets and he allowed 49 catches. Pretty good for a slot. It's going to be hard to be great in the slot and just to be a shutdown type corner like you can on the outside. So those were really good numbers. That's why he got paid. Next year after that, he dips down to 60.5, off 70 to 60 basically. He was targeted 112 times, though, in Detroit in that first year. Allowed 71 receptions, but that's a lot of targets. And so it's still, it's creeping up there, not looking good. Then last 2 years, it goes from 47.4 in 2020 to last year, he got a little up to 52.4. But the bottom line is on this Justin Coleman signing, this is a veteran minimum deal. This is a kind of a flyer situation. Seattle brought in Artie Burns to sort of be the front runner, I think, to play that slot. He can play a little bit of both, of course, inside and outside, and maybe Justin Coleman is a little bit of a hedge for the situation just in case something happens there. Certainly the team, I think, at this point is telling you that they're nowhere near sold on Ugo Amadi continuing on his development, and that they really know they need to upgrade the position, which is smart on them because that's something I've been calling for, and it's been obvious. One of the kind of the low-key failings of the defense last season that few really were looking at or pointing at was the slot position. And indeed, Ugo had really a tough season, I think, last year. So it's a good signing. That's not a big risky signing, no money, probably can be cut at any point in time. And again, it addresses a position that you needed to, in some way, shape, or form to address. Also probably leads us a little bit again away from maybe a corner being a likely position that they look high in the draft. Still hard to kind of say exactly, but that might also be some of the indications here with you. They're certainly going very heavy defensively here in free agency. So I appreciate you guys tuning in today. Thank you for watching. Please hit that like button if you do like what you're watching. And let's pop over here to you guys in the chat. Hope you're doing well tonight. See what you guys think on this DK talk. See where you guys stand. Again, I know many of you might go, why is this even a discussion? Why are we even talking about this? Why is this even coming up? It's coming up because this is a point of discussion. It's being talked about by the front office, and I've seen it in my chat for the last 6 months being brought up. People could see the DK contract coming up. You've got a segment of fans that think he's a diva. You've got a segment of fans that just don't want to pay receivers $25 million and up. They think that that's not the way to properly roster build. So there are people on this other side who look at the situation and go, it's not as straightforward of, yeah, he's been great, pay him. I'm landing there, but I think it's a worthy debate nonetheless. Thank you for everybody for watching on this Wednesday afternoon. Hope you guys are getting through your week already. BJ says, what's up, Brandon? What's up, BJ? Merck, hello. Merck says, pay him. Merck says, let's not be the Chiefs. Well, let's not be the Chiefs. I will say about the Chiefs. Those star quarterbacks start to sting by year 3, don't they? Don't they, Chiefs? Burns about year 3, don't it? Hurts the pocketbook, don't it? That year 3 of that quarterback contract just, it hits a little different, don't it, Chiefs, when you don't make 2.3% of the salary cap. Just a little bit. Can't quite get up to those contracts anymore, can you? Can't sign everybody anymore, can you? I'm sorry. I'm going to revel in it. We had to eat the ass end of this for the last 5 years. I'm going to enjoy watching some other team, play that role for a moment. Fiji Mark says, I couldn't handle a trade. Fiji, I don't know if I could either at this point. This offseason's nearly broken me, man. It's nearly broken me, and I don't mind telling you. It's been a rough one here. Fish says, pay DK, obviously. If we're going to develop and build Drew Lock, we have to have a good offense around him. Agreed. Cody Miller, Packers fan here. I say Packers trade our high second for DK or a mid-round pick for Tyler Lockett. Just my guess. We'll give you the Lockett trade, Cody, but I personally like to hold on to DK, and I also believe that he is worth more than Tyreek Hill. Tyreek fetched nearly the equivalent of 2 first-round picks in the total draft compensation that you got back there. To me, in my opinion, DK is a younger player, an ascending player. You're going to sign him for less of a contract than what Tyreek was demanding to sign for with Miami. That, to me, drives the value to 2 first-round picks, especially if they're not in this draft. If I got to wait for both the picks 1 year and then into the next. Terrence Barber says, "Why is this even a topic?" Because there's more that goes into it than just him being a good player and paying him. This is about how you build a roster. This is about how you construct and put yourself through a rebuild properly. And there's a going theory on this that you clear as much cap as you can until you're ready to shoot for the moon. When you're ready to shoot for the moon, you can pay whoever you want to pay. And you're not beholden to any bad contracts or any dead money now you have to get out from under. Devin Steele says, yes, birthday stream. Yeah, bye-bye. Randall, so months ago, Randall said if we trade Russ, then we may as well trade DK. I'd be okay with it. Don't know why you'd pay $28 to $30 million for a wide receiver without a quarterback. Get the picks and save the money. I think the only way you would pay it in the situation from my standpoint and why I'm willing to pay it, Randall, is I think that you're still just scratching the surface on DK. I think I look at the double team numbers across the sport, and whether or not fans want to admit it or not, whether fans would say, I'd take 6 receivers. I'd take 6 receivers over DK Metcalf. I don't know if I might take 10 receivers over DK Metcalf. Well, there's 31 NFL defensive coordinators that disagree with those fans. Because if that was the case, if there's all these other receivers that was better than him or that he wasn't on a special level, why is he being double teamed at the second highest rate in all of football? Something doesn't add up to me in that. And I come back around to that, his age, the unique skill set that he brings that you don't just find coming down the conveyor belt to the draft every single season. It's like, oh, we'll get the next DK next year. No, that won't happen. There's other great receivers. There's other receivers that are great in different ways. But this is one of those bird in the hand situations. And again, if he was going to be turning 28, then yeah, I might be more on board with this. If he was in the Tyreek stage of his career, yeah, I'd be more on board with this. But as he's still just ascending, just arriving, and not yet reached his full potential, and we don't know what that full potential is, I'm going to ride with DK. Corey Pitt says, no, please don't, unless we get a haul like Tyreek Hill. DK is cheap and up there with the best. Only suitor I'd be okay with is the Jets. Well, I think you'd probably trade him to who's going to give you the best capital at this point. I don't think Seattle's in the situation of even worrying about with DK of trading him interconference because of the fact that they're not due to compete at that point for a very long time. So what are you worried about the Packers getting it? By the time you're going to be back up and rolling, the Packers are going to have Rodgers retiring or moved on. I don't think that impacts it, but Corey, this is the question I pose to you. Yes, you would get a package like Tyreek Hill got. You would get, I think, a better package than Tyreek Hill. I just laid out the fundamental reasons why. You're paying him less. He's younger, still ascending. Those things I think would draw a little bit more value. And Randall, good call on that DK talk. You saw this coming down the pike too as well. Chancellor Light says, pay DK. I'm with you, man. Fish says, we aren't trying to rebuild, right? I'd love, other than, and I know what you're saying, Fish, because that's what they're telling us in these press conferences. But can anybody point to me and show maybe anything past the Quandre Diggs contract as anything that's an indication or proof that they are not just simply in a position at this point of just rebuilding? And I think part of me thinks the Quandre Diggs contract is signed and put forth because of the fact that they're doing a little bit of damage control for the way you just traded your Hall of Fame franchise quarterback, and then you just kicked the best linebacker in your franchise history out the back door with nary a word on the very same day. And so you had to come back and give the fan base a little bit of a win, especially as we can look back in retrospect now and recognize they weren't going to make any big deals in free agency. They weren't going to offset any of this bummer news. So what, other than the Quandre deal, what proof do we have that they are in truly right now, let's call it a reload mode? You don't have two starting tackles. That's kind of important on a football team. Say nothing of maybe some quality tackles. And the market's not exactly rich with either of those two anymore at this point. Well, Collins was out there. They're like, nah. Trent Brown went a little bit too high in price. They go, nah. They still aren't willing to pay. There's still this, and this is where we come back to that part of my worry about the front office here, which I'm hoping is learning its ways and turning over a new leaf, finding a new level to their game. But you don't find a new level to your game by trying to retry the old that has become broken. And the path before is the path that they're walking now. And that path has shown itself to be broken many different times. Maybe it'll be like a broken clock, where once every 5 years it's right, or something, whatever be the equivalent in year period of that. But it's interesting to hear them try to just keep telling us that they're in this reload mode while they're just sort of trying to build the super defense with no offense. You're like, oh yeah, okay, sure. Brandon says DK Metcalf should be worth more than Tyreek, so there's that. Agreed, Brandon. Agreed 100%. Randall says, but I can see why we will need him when we get our next quarterback. Plus, we need some star power and culture builders. I can see both sides of it. I can too, Randall. I think that's why it's a healthy, strong debate amongst the fan bases to talk about this. It doesn't have to be one that gets personal. I think it's just a matter of how the appropriate way to build a team in football. What's the way to put things, where do you want to put the majority of your assets, be it draft picks or salary cap space? Because both of those two things are finite. You only have so much. So you do have, it's not a monopoly board. It ain't Madden. You've got to pick and choose where you want to go strong and where you want to go weak. And that's part of the game at play here. Baked him God says Jets will take him. Want your first round picks back? Yeah, we'll take this year's first and we'll take next year's first. Mason Dale says, I just want to say good on the Falcons from going all in for Watson to trading Ryan and beginning a rebuild days later. Not every team is willing to move off of their plans that fast and adjust. Agreed. Agreed, Mason. I tell you, I'm a little more impressed by what the Colts did than I would say when I'm impressed by the Falcons. Because quite frankly, Mason, this was a decision that was at least a year overdue. And the Falcons can't really be lauded for this type of decision from my standpoint when a year prior, you made the mistake of remarrying yourself back to Matt Ryan, much in the same way Kirk Cousins has just been remarried back to the Vikings for 2 seasons. You put yourself in this position now to take the biggest dead money cap hit in NFL history. You only get a 3rd-round pick back for him, while the Colts make you look silly having gotten 2 3rd-round picks back for Carson Wentz when they traded him to the Washington Guardians. From my standpoint, I can't laud him on that. I got to kind of shake my head and go, no, I don't agree with that move from the Falcons standpoint. That's how you make bad decisions. And here's the other thing with that, Mason. I'm not trying to throw shade at you, Mason, but this was one thing I want to talk about in the stream watching the Falcons move. Falcons were in a position to play the compensatory game, before the Matt Ryan deal. They were in line to get a couple picks back, which would have further helped their rebuild. And then they made a couple of mid-market deal signings, Marcus Mariota, and they signed another guy. And now they're out of the compensatory game. It's like, whereas if last year they moved Ryan, they might have gotten even maybe a 1st-round pick for Matt Ryan, at least a 2nd-round pick for him. And then you would have been out from under his contract and then would have been back into having your cap space this year. I don't know. That's to me one reason why in recent times the Falcons and some of their decision-making hasn't been awesome in their approach. They're a little of that reactionary type franchise, a little bit like we've been, I think. Whereas the Colts have been one that I've also applauded for a long time in their approach because I think that they built a good team. They just got stuck in that place that's the horrific place to get stuck where you have a great team but can't find the quarterback. And, the new general manager who came in there and fixed that offensive line got it all fixed right about the time that Luck retired. Luck retires, and then you're in a position of having too good a team to ever pick high. And so now you're trying to find your way through these older quarterbacks, and they land Ryan at this point, who's better than Rivers, who's better than Wentz. Got to give that guy a lot of credit, who makes really smart moves. They don't get the results always when you make the smart moves, but you're more often than not going to see the success of them if you do. As to my broken clock metaphor. But I do applaud the Mason at least. They need to move on. Holding on to Ryan one more year, to your point on that, would have been dumb. You weren't beating out. Once Brady came back and you realized that was the lay of the land, it was like, okay, we're out. We're out. Randall says 17 to 19 million a year. I think he's 25. 25 is where he's, I think that's where this is going to land. I think the last 2 deals that have been signed, the last 2 days are going to reverberate to the Metcalf contract. Rob Terrell, they have about 93 million in cap space, so I say extend him. They don't have 93 million. They have 16 point some odd change in million in space right now, Rob. With probably they could probably create another. Well, they create a lot of space if they wanted to, but in just feasible cap space, they could create another 6-7 million if they wanted to too. Randall says he's 24, 10 touchdowns a year, never missed a game. Say Randall. That's it. Life and Sports Talk with Jake. This offense Pete wants to run. We wouldn't have saw Metcalf on that 2013 championship team. I say use them for all the draft capital like Tyreek got. There we go. I tell you, folks, this is definitely a vibrant debate, and I think it's there's somewhat equivalent on both sides. I think there's probably a little more DK, and I'm definitely pro DK remaining, but I think it's definitely an active one. I can understand the standpoint. Makes sense. It makes sense. Rob Terrell in 2023, they have 93 million in cap space. That's true. They do. The thing is with that, Rob, is you got to remember, though, the first year cap space comes in to hit this year. You can lower down the base all you want down to $1 million. But when you're talking about a $100 million deal, when you're talking about $50 million, that splits out into 4 years. $12.5 million on just the bonus alone at that point, which goes above his base, which then eats up your remaining salary cap at the very least. On top of you having to make some other moves to fit DK in this year, you are then not going to be able to get anybody else for the season of any real high impact. You're going to tap your cap out at that point. It's done. So that's the other decision you're making with it, which I'm fine with, Rob. I'm completely good with it. But that is a bit of the thing. Charles Riley with a $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. He says, if this is Pete's last ride and believes in luck, pay the kid. Well, that's it, Charles, right? Where put your money where your mouth is. You're telling us you're trying to compete. You're telling us you're going for it. We don't see any tackles. There's literally empty air when I look at the tackle position right now. Empty air. All I see is the indentations of Dwayne Brown's feet in the turf when I look at my offensive line at the moment. No Dwayne Brown, just the indentations of where his feet used to be. So where are we at, Pete? Are we really rebuilding here? Are we really going for it? Is this really not just trying to be a little bit of a circus show? Is this really trying to be not just a sleight of hand? Tell us one thing, do another. Listen to my words, don't follow my actions. Which is it? Which is it? Very well said, Charles. And I believe I'm with you. If you are right and you're moving on, if you're really trying to go for it next year and be competitive, then you don't move DK. Paul the Third with a $10 donation. Thank you, Paul. Says, never been a DK fan. His production's great until you put it into a game-by-game context. Drops, goes missing, doesn't show up against good, not even elite cornerbacks. Wasn't doubled 72% in 2022. Not worth it. Wasn't doubled 72% in 2022. Well, thank you for the donation, Paul. I don't know the last comment, what you mean by wasn't doubled 72% in 2022. I'm not sure on what you mean by that. So I guess you're saying that because he was double teamed at 20.5%, you're saying that he wasn't double teamed on 72%, yet he was a man coverage killer last year. He's top 3 in the sport per the advanced stats as far as beating man coverage. I mean, Paul, some of it, I mean, there's truth in what you're saying. There's a little bit of the drops there, and there's a little bit of the going missing. But then the part that we have to come and I think rectify a little bit here is how much of it is then Russell Wilson pre-snap noticing a double team sliding to DK and then just looking somewhere else. And the double team becomes that obvious that he just totally at that point says, okay, for now the next 2 or 3 quarters, I'm not going to ignore this. And I've watched games. I've looked at all 22 tape in recent years at times, not just this season, especially in those times where I'm like, why is it the DK went this whole game out? And you can go to a game, for instance, like you talk about elite cornerbacks, Patrick Peterson a year ago, where he's the whole game, Russell doesn't even look over at him or look over at Patrick Peterson and even try to test him over there. And then when he does the end of the game, DK just explodes, nearly wins us the game on a bubble screen, if not for a bad call on a block on David Moore. But I saw a lot of that. That's why I don't line into he so disappears. It's like, well, the quarterback's got to target him. It takes 2 to tango. And if Russ just has that mechanism inside of him, I'm making my pre-snap reads are telling me to go away from DK because I'm seeing a double team and I got single coverage over here, path of least resistance. Well, then is that DK's fault at that point if Russell processes that way when the way he looks at it? And it's not wrong for Russell to process it that way. But Russell's not like Aaron Rodgers, where Aaron will fling it into the double coverage. Aaron's got the gun to get it in there and squeeze those tight windows. I don't know if Russ trusts himself as much in those tight windows or throws with anticipation. We'll see. When you get DK with a different quarterback, I guess we'll see. I'll tell you last year in that Jags game with just Geno Smith, there were some throws in that game to DK that we didn't see Russell making the same type of throws. So we'll see, Paul. We'll see. But I understand where you're coming from, Paul. There's a lot of people on that line who say, I'm not on board with him. You know, you're not alone. I must acknowledge it. Even if I don't agree with it, I acknowledge it. Charles Third, $5 donation says that their attempt at a super defense has been nothing short of pathetic. Can't imagine they've done worse devoting resources to the offense the last 3 years. Yeah, they've double back down to the defense, maybe triple back down to the defense this offseason. Look at how much money we've spent, which is now at the end of the day going to go over a little over $53 million. And by far the majority of it now has gone to the defensive side of the ball. Your highest paid players, Poona Ford, Jamal Adams, Jaquandre Diggs on the defensive side of the ball. You know, it'll be interesting too to see what they do with the draft picks on this, Charles, if they continue to bury more into the defense. I mean, why not all of it onto the defense at that point, right? Why don't we just run 36 times a game and we'll run a read option quarterback And then we'll just build this just everything on defense, all defense, all defense, all the time. I mean, that's the kind of the approach they seem to be taking a little bit. It's kind of wild to watch. Just, you don't have 2 starting tackles. Don't talk to me about Jay Curhan or Stone Forsythe. You don't have right now 2 legitimate starting tackles that you could rely on if this was week 1. You have no idea what you're going to do. Very good chance you're going to try at least a rookie out at 1 and try hard at the other side. It's strange. It's kind of tripping me out. Barry Sotoro with a $5 donation. Thank you, Barry. Says, disappointing. Cap practicing at UW today. The dumpster fire is going to be invited to OTAs and training camp. This will be a 2010 move. Kicking tires. Well, thank you for the donation, Barry. Charles, Paul III. Thank you. You guys are very kind for donating the chat on that. Sorry I was a little slow in acknowledging it. I've made my thoughts on Cap pretty clear with it too, Perry. You know where I stand on it. Got nothing against the guy personally. I really don't. I just look at things through the context of football, and I don't know what, I don't understand the move in bringing him in. It doesn't hurt anything, I guess, at the end of the day, theoretically, outside of what we could be seeing as far as the media circus that you could kind of create around this kind of situation. But at the end of the day, it's a rebuild. It looks like it's going rebuild. It's pretty hard along these lines, rebuild at this point. So is it going to matter at that point? It doesn't matter. Dumpster fire might be a good way of putting it at this point, though, especially you end up trading DK and the roster you're running out next year. It's like, well, I'm not a guy who likes to call things dumpster fires, but it's like, it's pretty close at that point to, it's very dumpstery and it's very smoky. It's kind of stinky. I don't know what else to call it. Megan got Roger with a $2 donation. Thank you, Megan. She says, I'm nursing a massive migraine today. Maybe quiet. Oh, well, hang in there, Megan. I'll try not to speak too loud. Go too loud here on this one, but hang in there. Drink some water, a lot of water. Just relax. He says, relax. Merck says, DK is more limited than Hill or Adams. DK can disappear at times. Again, yeah, it disappears. But again, I don't know. I guess I got it for the folks saying disappears. I don't know. He crushes single coverage, and then he's double teamed pretty much as much as any receiver in the sport. Randall says, I realize we are a franchise, but DK, are we sure he wants to sign here? He may not want to. You never know. He seems to like Seattle, but I don't know. I'm not sure on that. Dana says, rebuilding, getting younger. Indeed. Rob Terrell says they could trade him to Philly for one of their mid-first round picks. Yeah, it's going to cost more than one. Brendan says I could see him doing it, and I'd be more heartbroken than when we traded Russ. I didn't watch Russ get drafted. It'd be a tough one for me to swallow too, man. It's gonna be hard coming on the channel and being super positive if that move comes down the track. It really will. I put a good face on this offseason, and I do have true optimism for the future, despite having some worries, but that would certainly be rough. BJ says, I would stick with Locke for a year in someone for competition like Bailey Zapp, build the defense up again, and then draft a quarterback one next year if we don't already got someone yet. Sounds good to me. I'm with that. Mark, I'm just saying I'm not paying a wide receiver $120 million to not even use him or even target him. That's an understandable deal with him, Merk. Here's the question that comes into play. Again, take the 2 different stats that I just posed to you, and you can do a quick Google search to locate this. Look at how often DK Metcalf destroys single-team coverage, one-on-one coverage. Absolutely obliterates it. Top 3 in the sport. Now look at the stat of how often he's double-teamed. Now we come back to the fact that DK Metcalf can't throw the ball to himself. So are we determining here when he's going quiet, when he's disappearing in football games, when he's turning into the Casper of the football field, is this because DK is not getting open, or is this because the quarterback's not targeting him? And that's the question I guess I'm posing to you guys on the chat on that take the standpoint of the disappearing. The catching thing, the hands, 100% valid. Certainly there are some questions with him on a little bit of the hands. Sometimes to me it gets a little overstated, but I'll give ground on that. I'll give an inch on that. But the disappearing thing, going to have to make sense of that to me, where you got a guy that double teamed, having a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who is not an anticipatory thrower of the football. He's not a guy that's going to throw you open most of the time. He wants to see you open. And if he sees 2 guys lurking around, he's going to go, okay, where's the other place I can go? I know, I'm so certain, and watching Russell for 10 years and understanding how he processes on the football field, I can't tell you guys, I'm more certain of that than almost anything else I could tell you guys. That's how Russell Wilson processes. That's how he goes through the looks on the football field. He's got some gunslinger tendencies, but he's not the gunslinger guy to say, oh, there's a double team, let me go at that. Especially knowing he's got Carroll in the back of his ear. Don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over, don't turn the ball over. And guess what? We know that he's looked at, I'm sure, at analytical stats that tell you if you throw into double teams, the chances of being intercepted are this much higher. But I'm going to balance the chat. I want to see what you guys say on that, because I'd like to see on the disappear what you guys make of that. Jeremy. Sam Z says how much they can pay him. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of four for $25 million a year for $100 million. A lot. Mark Abercorn, what's up, Mark? It says, do you think Hawks will take an offensive tackle at 9 or 40 and 41? And if so, which ones? Like and sub for this hard-working man. Well, thank you, Mark. I do appreciate it. I think at this point, it's pretty solid to say that you're taking a tackle somewhere in the first 3 picks of this draft. At least one, and there's even a good possibility you take 2. A straightforward path here, a path, Mark, that would give us all a nice deep breath of, okay, we're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. That would be at number 9. You get a guy dropping to you like Charles Cross. He's depending on which team you talk to and which board you put up. Some like Cross, some like Akeem Akawanu, some like Evan Neal. I think he might, because of some size concerns with him from some people and maybe some testing number concerns, might slide into that 9 spot. He would certainly look tantalizing there. If not him, Trevor Penning, who is the small school kid that was your best lineman during the week at the Senior Bowl. He was also the guy famous for taking defensive ends and throwing them at the quarterback's feet during that also Senior Bowl. So he's a little bit of a wild man, a little bit of a tough guy. I think that's a little bit of overdrafting him to take him that high, but he would probably be your proverbial next guy up, if not for maybe Bernard Raymond. If you're looking into that second round period, I think that there's a couple guys on the right side that make a lot of sense, that being Abraham Lucas, who has as much film that's as much fun to watch as any guy I've seen so far in this evaluation process of looking at these guys. Very clean prospect, very high floor with also some ceiling to him. Not just one of those high floor, low ceiling guys, but he's got a lot of that, both components to his game. Then you've got a Daniel Fa'alele, which is all upside there. Some bust factor, but all upside as well. And he would be interesting there as another right tackle. Gigantic human being, 6'9", 400 pounds, humongous. Antonio Petit-Ferrier out of Ohio State, also in that second round period, would also be a guy I think that they might take a glancing look at. Tyler Smith, if he lasts, though I think Tyler's going to go in the first round. Kid out of Tulsa that I really like a lot as well from my standpoint. One of those collection of guys I could see Seattle walking away with out of this draft. Nick Guerrero, it's my birthday. Just wanted to say, love the content. Appreciate you, brother. Well, thank you. We have a couple people. Happy birthday, Nick Guerrero, and happy birthday to I missed the other guy up there who said it was my birthday today. It was birthday stream. Well, happy birthday to you guys, too. Hope you guys are having a good one. Awesome stream. I knew it was somebody's birthday, so I had to go live, It's about you guys. Terrence Barbie says, no one will want to come to Seattle. Well, that's going to be a topic on a show here pretty soon. That's going to be one coming up for this channel. And the discussion is going to be around the value of being a player-friendly, and I've got quotation marks for you, those just listening in, player-friendly coach, organization. And not that I'm looking to get cutthroat or cold-blooded. Again, it's going to be more of a discussion at that time. But, we're not getting a lot of the benefits that we need to be getting from having the player-friendly coach, having the player-friendly organization. We got players with their butts burned walking out the door. We're not able to recruit anybody here. You've had cliques develop within the locker room. You've had a lot of noise. things that you wouldn't necessarily expect come with having a player's coach. Meanwhile, you still get all of the negatives of a player's coach that you get with that. The loosey-goosey style of things, not always being a disciplinarian, not always having the guys towing the line in every way that you need him to tow, being detailed-centric, these type of things. But that's a topic for another show, something I do wonder about. Jeffrey O'Kelly says, what do you think? What do you feel about Locke being the starter day one? He seems like a good guy. He's saying all the right things. I'm not sold on him being a starting NFL quarterback. And I think you put him out there for any given amount of time, I think he's going to be what he is. Certainly I'll give the kid some room for development, and maybe he can come in here and everything fits really well to him. He's spoken to this offense being a much better fit than the one he was operating from within under Fangio. That's encouraging. But he's going to have to kind of prove it to me, Jeffrey. I'm not going to go off his tape and go, I've seen it on his tape, and the kid's amazing. He's got a hose. But as far as a processor goes on the football field, and look, I put having a hose, having a great arm at the top of my list as far as what I look for first and foremost in a quarterback. Can you make all the throws? But then the other thing that I look for, maybe number 2, is going to be processing. Can you get through your reads? Can you look pre-snap and make your proper distinction on what you're looking at and know post-snap, you're going to go in the right direction? Hot routes here. Defense is angled this way. Go to the hot route. Up, defense is going to the cover 2 shell. Ball out of the back of your hand. Swing route. 1.5 seconds off the back foot. Just let it rip. Like the stuff that's really hard to pick up as a fan, that processing stuff. And it's hard to, honestly, when you look at it in film, it's hard to even evaluate it or sometimes read it. You can read it when you get the quarterback doing this, right? His head goes to the right, off the snap. Then you see him going to the center. Then you see him going in here and you go, oh, we went through 3 reads. Ooh, we went through 3 reads. Oh, my God. But it's not always easy when it's sometimes just off the first read that's been given him seeing something pre-snap to make him go to that direction of things. So I'm not a believer yet in the Locke experience. I'm hopeful, but for now I'm keeping that. I'm going to think somebody else is going to probably be starting by week 1. DJ Jimenez, what are your thoughts if Pete brings in Colin Kaepernick for a workout? I mean, it's just a workout. DJ, that's kind of where I stand on this. It's just a workout. I'm not going to get too flustered by it. I'm not going to get in a tither by it. If we were in a state of trying to truly compete right now and really go out there and really be one of the best teams in the NFL, I would be a lot more disturbed and perturbed by the situation. But whatever. If they want to try to give the fans some, happy feels, go for it. Good. I'm going to be more concerned with just what happens on the football field, though. And as I've said with Kaepernick, I don't think he gives you very much on the football field. Might get you some bennies with the players and all that, but I don't know what he gets you. I don't know if he's going to deliver much on the field. Going survive with DK, Debo, AJ Brown, McLaurin, and Hollywood up for extensions. Get paid first. Well said. Now's the time to put the deal down because it's only going to get richer. These contracts, as you guys know with this stuff, the next guys up, the next great guys up will make more than the last guy made, and it continues to go up like an escalator. So, if you wait, you hold off. I would guesstimate that if we do not get a deal done with DK Metcalf, then what you're going to see at that point is them hanging the potential of a franchise tag over his head for next offseason. You would then see a trade of him next offseason, most likely for less draft capital than you get right now. I don't think you'd get the same unless he just explodes next year. But you're still going to get significant returns at that point, which may be where the team is looking towards right now. DJ Owen, pay the man. But if we got 5 good draft picks like the Chiefs did for Hill, I say trade him. DK, I think we would. I think we could, man. I think we could get a lot of huge haul. Herbicide says Cap's a publicity stunt. I mean, it's got certain feels to that to me. Just it feels a little bit like that, especially with as many bitter pills as they have shoved down the fans' throats this offseason. It's like, well, here's an ice cream sundae. Doesn't that make you feel better? Doesn't that make you feel better? Ain't that better? Don't you forget about Russ now? You forget about Bobby? Oh, we trade DK, but hey, Colin's here. Charles Riley, the $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. It says, Brando, there are Jets fans in here lobbying for DK. GMB Jeff came with a pretty weak offer of 35, 38, and a third next year. Yeah, Jets fans, look. Brass bottom tax. The guy's played 3 straight years. He's had the best production in our team history in that time. He's only 24 years old. This is you. I know you all think Tyreek Hill may be the best thing since sliced bread, but the bottom line of it is the way that he's going to be viewed in league circles is he's worth the equivalent of 2 first-round picks. So if you Jets fans come in here, you better bring a better offer. I'm not picking up my phone, and I'm not giving you acknowledgement on some weak second-round picks, okay? You took us once on a trade. Feel good about that. Sleep better in your night up in Brooklyn and be like, you know what? We freaking took those Seahawks to the freaking, took them to the cleaners. Took them to the cleaners on that Jamal deal. Jamal Adams, defensive mastermind. Oh my God, huh? Get the fuck out of here. Get out of here. Forget about it. Now what? We're gonna come back at you now. We're gonna come back at you. We're gonna give us some more. You know, is this the mob mentality of New York coming at us here? You know, we wet your beak. We wet your beak a couple years ago, and now you're sticking your whole head into the bag. Okay? Don't do that. You come in, bring an offer, and make it significant. Okay? We've had a rough offseason. No more kicking the Seahawks fans down anymore, okay? We're now in stand-up mode. Stand-up mode is you come in, you give your condolences, you give us an envelope, and maybe we give you DK. Maybe. Sit in the corner and wait. Okay? Sit in the corner and wait. Barry Sotoro with a $5 donation says, I can't see DK taking less than Tyreek's extension. 4 years, $120 million, 72.2 guaranteed. Why would DK command less? I'll give you some good reasons for this, actually, because this is weird how this works in the NFL, but it does work this way. When you have a younger player like DK on the rookie deal, you have this 4th year now that he's now operating on. This is the final year of his rookie contract. He would be due theoretically to be a free agent after this season. But you can then franchise DK for 2 straight seasons after this season. So from the Seattle Seahawks standpoint, they look at the situation and they say, okay, let's say, I don't have the numbers right now, Barry, off the top of my head. Let's just say that the franchise tag for a receiver right now will run about $23 million a year. Let's say 23 this year, 25 next year. So you're paying him $3.5 million this year, I believe. So then you have DK Metcalf for 3 years and $49 million. Okay. So from Seattle's standpoint, they can say, we have the leverage to do that. Remember, under the new collective bargaining agreement, the players cannot hold out anymore. This is a thing fans have not quite caught on to fully yet, but they probably should. You cannot hold out anymore. It's $50,000 a day to hold out in the NFL. And you cannot forgive the fines like you used to be able to do for players. Therefore, you will not ever see any players anymore hold out. They might hold in, but you can only do that for so long, right? That's only going to hold up for so long. So Seattle has leverage. Contract negotiations are always driven by leverage. And the leverage is we can hold on 3 years or 50 for you, DK, or you can take 4 and 100. Which would you like? Which do you want to do? I want you to trade me. No. Well, I'm going to hold in. Okay. We're rebuilding. We're not winning anyway. Oh, you mean you're going to help? You're going to hold in, preserve your body, and then put us in a better position to draft higher next year's draft? Okay. Sure. Yeah, go ahead. All right. Cool. Fine. So leverage. Leverage drives this. Tyreek on the other side of it, a little closer to the end of his career, a little more of a, hey, I need to get this last deal done. Hey, I've been a good soldier. I've been waiting to get paid. We got through all of our guys. Time to do right by me. A little bit more of a pain from them at that point. And if he holds in training camp, they're not in a similar situation of being like, well, he's holding in, we'll just sit on him. His value starts to go down. And their willingness and want to pay him at that point goes way down because he's only getting older, getting close to that 30 years of age. So I don't think it's an apples for apples type situation between the two guys. And he's not going to sign for the same. He's not going to sign for the same amount as Tyreek. He'll get. I can see 25, but he ain't getting to the 30 mark. Washington Vizquest is celebrating 6 months as a Hawks Nest member, and I appreciate that about you. It says sign DK for star power, if anything. Merch money, baby. That's right, Washington Vizquest. Well, remember in the owners' collective bargaining agreement, it's a revenue sharing situation, so you don't really make your own dough, as I understand it, from that standpoint of things. But look, sign him. It's good for the fan base. It'll give us a win this offseason where we're kind of desperately needing a little bit of a win right now, aren't we? Maybe just a little bit. Thank you, though, for the donation on that one. Jeffrey Lund with a $5 donation. Thank you, Jeffrey. He says, Chiefs trade Tyreek, Packers let Devante walk, and everybody is calling for us to re-sign DK when the best quarterback in the league just let go of their number ones. It's a great point, Jesse. The one thing, though, I will counter with you on this is that the Tyreek trade and the Devante trade are two different situations. While Tyreek was theoretically allowed to walk by Kansas City, they came very close to offering the same contract that the Dolphins did. The Dolphins were just willing to mildly, partially, incrementally increase the offer beyond what the Chiefs were willing to give. They didn't want to go to $30 million a year. So it wasn't like the Chiefs were like, done with you, go. It wasn't like what the Cowboys did, let's say, with Amari Cooper, right? And again, even the Amari Cooper trade, the Cowboys would have loved to have kept him, but they had to re-sign Michael Gallup. They had to situate the rest of their bad cap situation where it was, and he was the one player, because they couldn't get rid of Zeke Elliott, who could resolve and help out some of their cap situation. And then with the Devante situation, I got to say, let walk. Jesse, if the Packers let Devante walk, why were they willing to match the exact same contract that the Raiders offered? The Raiders didn't offer a dime, not a nickel, not a dollar, more than what the Packers were willing to offer Devante Adams. He just didn't want to be in Green Bay anymore. So Devante pushed that trade. That came from his side. They would have kept him. They would have let him roll, you know. And with Tyreek, too, on top of that situation where it was at, I think there was also with Tyreek, we've got to acknowledge, I think there's a little bit of the off-the-field concerns there that maybe the Chiefs were maybe a little bit worried with and given the $30 million to, just to agree. But they were willing to come close by the reports I read. But look, like I said too, Jesse, I understand people that stand on your side of this that say, look, this isn't a smart path to go. And there's signs in the NFL that maybe they're showing that this isn't the smartest path to go. Jason Orozco, thank you for subscribing. You are a scholar, and I appreciate you, sir. Wash Visquest with the $2 donation says, I don't blame Jets fans. We are their Bill O'Brien. Yes, no longer New York will we stand as your Bill O'Brien. No longer will we be your little trade whipping boy. We'll pull our pants on up and go down the road and tell her, Mom, they took us for a trade. I'm not going to blame him for a while, but I need to start seeing some better offer from Jets fans. I need some serious, come on now. Let's get out of the la-la land. You know, let's get out of the New York state of mind here. Give me something legitimate. Get me interested. Tantalize me. Charles Riley, $5 donation says, Brando, what would Don Corleone do if given an offer for DK that's a Jets 22 first rounder, a second, and a fourth next year? Would the Don feel disrespected? He'd say, what is this? What is this offer you're giving me? I asked for more. What do you think I'm a joke? You gave us your son, Jamal Adams. We took good care of him. We raised him up. We paid him. And now you do this to us. 1 first-round pick. Why don't you try to make us an offer? We can offer refuse. Why don't you do that? I don't understand. Why you do that to my son? It's my son. Charles, that's as good as I got today. That's as good a Don as I got. But that's what he'd say. He said, make me an offer I can refuse. You make me an offer I can refuse. I'll give you my DK Metcalf. How about that? Andre Ross says, DK trading? No. I don't want to see it, Andre. I don't want to see it. Brian O'Connor, Pete said they wanted to keep him and extend him before the draft, but he also said we are not trading Russ. They better not trade him. Well, Brian, this is why I made this the sort of the theme of this particular show. This is why I'm broaching this out to you guys. Because we've heard Pete doing this now. I call it the Pete parsing Pete part of this stuff, right? Saying one thing, but you also have this little tickling in the back of your brain going, but did he maybe mean something else? I feel like he kind of left the door cracked open there. He didn't shut it. He kind of, we want to keep DK. Yeah, we'd like to get the contract done right before training camp. Yeah, we'd love to have him here. Just would be awesome. Just going to leave that right there. Yeah, be great. If he can just remain, just call us, offer a trade. Yeah, we're going to try to sign him. We'll take some first round picks. Yeah. We'll bring him in. We're going to just, he's a long-term solution here. Part of a building block plan. So a little bit is like, Pete's burned me here now. Pete's lied to me and lied to me recently. I can't believe him. I can't believe him no more. Lavish P brings up a great point, says Locke's a backup quarterback. That's true. Seahawks, Jose Rodriguez. What's up, Jose? He says, I'm ready to say goodbye to the pacifier. Well, Jose, one of my OGs in the channel, always good to see you. And if you aren't already subscribed to Jose Rodriguez, please subscribe to Jose, one of our fellow channels here in Seahawk land. And they'll maybe buy to the pacifier here if they pull the trigger on this. There's no rumors of a trigger being pulled, but the gun's on the table. And until we get a signing of DK this offseason, it's going to remain there with the safety off. Merrick, what is Baker going to get us over Locke? 2 more wins? Like, damn, stop being so impatient. We're not contending this year with or without Baker. Agreed. As I stand with it, I don't want to have Baker come in here, but we do know that the team's looking at it, and that's that middle approach to Baker that I warned about, where you have the fork in the road, and they're taking that middle path that there is no path. You're going into the sagebrush. There's cacti in there. It's not safe. Static says, what's the Lockett's trade value? Well, considering how much the market's exploding as far as for cost of receivers, I would tend to think that you're probably going to be a late 3rd round pick would probably get it done. That would be my estimation, because who's ever getting Lockett then is getting him on a really fairly cheap salary, since we're eating all of his bonus money. So, if I'm the Packers right now, I know that DK is the one that they have in their sight line from the fan base standpoint, and even guys that are former players are talking it up, but that would be the guy to me that is the straightforward one that makes sense for them to bring in. Cappy says, if DK is all about that dough, let him go. Well said, Cappy. I never miss. We got him at the 2nd round, where if they did a redraft, he would go top 7. We need to keep the young studs that we find in the draft. Agreed, man. Some points or another, you got to start building this thing up, not just tearing everything down. And I'm a big tear it down to the studs guy, but that doesn't begin with us throwing away young stars who haven't even entered their prime yet. Those are the guys you build around. Those are the guys that you have in your 3-year plan, 4-year plan, for where you're looking to get truly competitive and be elite. Jeremy Elgin says, Baker you could get for a 7th round. Well, here's the boss move Schneider's pulling right now. So Schneider's pulling a boss move. We got to give him some credit. That's what I'm hearing about Johnny S right now. Johnny S is pulling some boss, okay? What I'm hearing about Johnny S is he's looking at the Browns, and they're called, and they're like, okay, so, it looks like, looks like the Colts got Matt Ryan, huh? Weird. And John's over there like, yeah, really weird. Kind of one of the main suitors. Didn't Baker want to go there? And then Indy's general manager's like, well, yeah, it's kind of what he was wanting. Or Brown's general manager's like, yeah, he was wanting that. He was wanting that, but, we just, they're out now. They're out, of course, now. And John's like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Or, well, you guys know we're still interested, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm hearing stuff about Baker. We're hearing maybe he didn't want to choose us. I don't know. We've been scorned. We've already been scorned by one quarterback this offseason. I don't know if we want to be scorned by another. At this point, we almost feel like we're doing you a favor taking Baker off your hands. We'd have to carry $18 million in cap space, and we don't know if he's worth it. He's going to be a free agent next year. It really is like we're doing you a favor if you think about it. Why'd you give us a 5th-round pick for Baker Mayfield? We'll take him, and you give us a 5th-round pick, and, we'll Osweiler you. We'll do you some Osweiler relief. We'll get you out from under that treacherous, bad rookie deal. How's it sound, Cleveland? How's it sound? That's just what I'm hearing, folks. That's just what I'm hearing. Brian O'Connor, would you be okay with Charles Cross at 9? Brian, I would be okay? This is you coming up to the tee box, okay? And it's a par 5. It's a long par 5. And you want to let the big dog hunt, all right? Big Bertha's sitting in the back of that bag, and she's saying, let me rip. Let it rip. Let the big dog hunt. Okay? That's what she's saying. But, hey, there's some nasty dog legs going either way here. Sometimes you need to reach in that bag and go grab that 3-wood and put that sucker right down the middle of the fairway to your second shot. Don't mess with those dog legs. Hit it right, hit it true, put it down the middle, get yourself in the best position then for the next shot forward. It's a long par 5. There's going to be a lot of shots here. It ain't going to be one big swing. This ain't a par 3. We're trying to hole in one. So, hey, Charles Cross is that 3-wood you're putting down the middle of the fairway. Is he the big one? Is he a Kyle Hamilton? Ooh. Sauce Gardner? Ooh. Kayvon Thibodeau? Ooh. No. Not kind of coming with that kind of glitz. He doesn't come with all the lights. But he just might be an upper level 10-year starter for you in this league at the left tackle position. And as boring as that might sound to some, it is tremendously hard to find. Tony C says, I hear people saying that we shouldn't be paying DK because we don't have a decent quarterback. And I argue that's exactly when we need a 6'4" monster that a rookie quarterback can throw to in a pinch. Agreed, Tony. I think it could help. Certainly, to your point on this, Tony, if you bring in a guy like Malik Willis in this draft or another young quarterback, what is not a greater young benefit to that young quarterback than to have that safety net there that they can always throw to, that they know this guy gets open more often than not. Say nothing of even what I talked about with Russell, going away from the double teams, knowing now that when the quarterback comes out there and he goes, I've got a run-centric offense that's very effective. I have a receiver on the outside that's taking double coverage. How much easier that's going to be for a young quarterback to process and go through where he wants to go with the ball pre-snap. And it could very well aid him. I think it absolutely would aid him. So I think that, to me, there's just enough boxes here that are bumps, that are pluses versus the minuses are keeping DK. I mean, the minuses really is the only place that people can really stand on. The minuses are, okay, he costs a lot, a little bit of struggles with maybe the drops, and maybe you're worried about diva attitude. But on the pluses, big body receiver you don't see coming down the track every once in a while that moves at a speed that they never move at, a willing blocker in the run game, and you like to run the ball quite a bit. He's improved in his ability at yak. He's improved in his route running. To me, he's gotten better every single year. The rest of the NFL seems to be pretty scared of the guy. I could sit there and just add plus after plus after plus down the mark on the other side of the boxes. And while I acknowledge there are those negatives, the pluses far outweigh them to me. D-Nugget, I'm in Brando. I'm in Hawaii visiting my parents. Oh, that's a good time to visit Hawaii right now. It's like perfect weather there. Brandon says, not to mention players, fear DK. Look at how high he is in the top NFL top 100 every year. Yeah, he bullies guys. It's hard to bully people in the NFL. These guys are pro players. Nobody's bullying anybody. He's bullying guys. And it's I love watching it. I loved it a couple years ago when he went Darius Slay. I mean, there's a thing I want to post to my channel, but it's pretty blue, his description of things, but I've always wanted to because I think it'd be funny just to post it where he's talking about his little interaction with DK on the field. And yeah, those guys just go at it. He goes at him. Lavish P, we couldn't win with Russell and DK. We're not going to win with Locke 0-16. I don't know if you go in 16, but yeah, you're not going to probably win a lot. That's for sure. Rob Terrell says, hard to call it a reset when you don't have a left tackle or a quarterback. Agreed, Rob. That's why I think they're telling us one thing and doing something else. Jeremy Elgin says, DK is another Debo. You pay that man or regret it for the next 15 years. Jeremy Elgin, well said. 100% agree with you. Superior Records, would you like to see Bobby Wagner twice a year? I'm not scared by the thought. I don't think that he's prime Bobby Wagner anymore. I don't think he's going to be the same player going forward. He's okay. He's fine. I just don't think middle linebackers control the game that way. Not like a lockdown corner on the outside or a dominating 3-tech or a dominating edge rusher. I'm not scared. I ain't scared. Alexander Wheeler, the few one-year deals kind of show that we're wanting to win this year. There's no other reason to sign one-year deals. I might counter that a little bit, Alexander. I might counter that a little bit. If you were going for winning this year, you would want to stack up as many deals under the salary cap as absolutely is possible. The only way to stack as many deals into the salary cap as possible is to get multi-year deals out there to where then you can have a huge portion of those contracts in bonus money. And then you're now taking that bonus money and splitting it over the portions of the years of the deal. When you have a 1-year deal, when you have a 2-year deal, there's nowhere for that bonus money to go run. You got to eat it all up at the front end of it. And I think that to me is more of an indicator of what they're in actuality doing is paying the price right now to keep the cap space in the future open at the point in time when they're going to be truly ready and in a position to pay for potentially those top mark players that you want to add to get your team in a position to truly contend. That's how it looks to me. John Crawford says, aren't you rebuilding every year? Think about it. No. I mean, I guess, John, it depends on what our definition is of rebuilding. To me, a rebuilding is that you're offloading assets. You're not in a state of pushing your salary cap to the edge. You're not giving up future draft capital or putting any of that at risk. You're taking a slow approach to building your roster versus other teams that are more in the go-for-it mode. So, John, an example of this would be the Rams last year, right? Constantly over the cap, still dealing out first-year draft capital. They're down 3 picks in this upcoming draft to start things out. Squeezing as many contracts as they can under their cap to try to build their roster as deep as they can. That's not a rebuild at that point. That's why I say there's 3 terms I go to, John. You have rebuild, reload, retool. I would say rebuild is what it is. That's where you're taking it all the way down to almost nothing. Retool is that you've got to take certain positional groups out and fully pull them off the block and then reinstall back in fresh, but not the whole team itself. And then reload is simply that you have a couple parts that you're just reloading back into. But a rebuild is to me more of a fuller process of you paring down, taking salary down, if anything, trying to roll salary cap space over, but I think it's very much a different thing. Pretentious Cameron, this season will be a 7 or 8 win season. It's not a complete punt, but think of it like 2011. Well said. Agreed. I think you're probably right in that trek right now. Brian O'Connor Diggs said he talks to Pete before he signed, and Pete told him we aren't rebuilding. And see, again, Brian, I that's what Pete's been he's been pretty consistent in saying this. But I'm a guy, as I've gotten older in this realm, this is one of those life lessons you learn as the older you get, because you start to realize there's so many people that talk, and I talk a lot. But people just talk a lot. They'll say things, but then when the rubber meets the road, it's something different. And quite frankly, I haven't seen the proof of them truly trying to compete for next year. How do they look at, even just within this own division, say nothing of the NFC with the moves teams like the Buccaneers have made, and go, yeah, we're able to compete with that. We're on that level. We're right there with that. I think that it's just that I think if they were doing what we're seeing them do, which is rebuild, Brian, I think if this was the path they're taking, I don't think that they would just come out and tell us this is what we're doing. Yeah, we've been here 10 years. And we just pushed off the most popular quarterback in the team's history, who's still playing at a high level, because we didn't want to build around him we didn't want to build around the offense. We want to go back to the defense, and we're also going to release out Hall of Fame middle linebacker, maybe the best defender in the team's history, or one of the best defenders, because he costs a lot. We don't want to really pay that anymore, and we're not going to be good next year. We're going to bring in Drew Lock, and we're going to suck. And you guys aren't going to like watching it, and it's going to be hard to watch at times, but we're doing that so that we can clear the deck, so that we can get ourselves in a position next year to truly compete. Because you guys, this year we're sitting on $40 million of dead money. And, we can't really build up a competitive roster that way, say nothing of having just lost or traded our Hall of Fame quarterback. So I don't think that if they were trying to take that approach, Brian, I don't think that would go down very smoothly amongst the fan base if that's what they were saying. But doing it as they're doing it, I'm reading the moves, and the moves are telling me that's what they're doing. Phil S. Sean also says it right. Phil S. Sean says they're setting up to sell the team. They are, Phil. We'll notice none of these deals go past 2025 right now. Is it a coincidence that we're going to see the salaries at a very bare minimum arriving into 2025 right at the time that Jody Allen can then sell the team? Just a coincidence? I think not. James Watson says, seems like a lot of people are in love with picks and not by the player that's selected. Agreed, James. I think it's always there is a little bit of that process of the I don't know what it could be. It could be anything. It could be, it's that scene in Old School where Farrell's talking about the thing, he's with his wife and he's in counseling and he's like talking about checking out a girl and thinking about what she's wearing beneath the pants. She could be wearing any kind of pants. It could be cotton. It could be G-string. It could be, I don't even know. I don't even know. It could be anything. It could be something amazing. And that's like, I think how people look at draft picks a lit. Like, well, it could be the best of all time right there that you're passing on. Versus, look, you've got a guy in DK that's going to be one of the best of all time with his current trajectory where he's at and his age and his skill set and what he brings to the table. So, yeah, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping so. Charles Riley celebrating 7 months as a Hawks Nest member. Thank you, Charles. He says, Don Brando taking offers from New York Jets. Be respectful. That's right. Don't you disrespect me. Don't you disrespect my team. Don't you disrespect my Seahawks. Go Hawks 2022 has been a member for 10 months. He says, we need to keep DK. He's a youngster. Go Seahawks. Go Seahawks, man. Thank you for celebrating 10 months as a member. And yeah, that's right. Need to keep DK. He is a youngster. Let's go. He's got a lot of years ahead of him still. No injury history. No torn ACLs. No bad backs. No bad hammies like Julio Jones. Julio Jones. Watch this quest with the $5 donation. Says, given on... Oh, excuse me. There's a burp here. He says, I've given up hope on a rebuild. I'm excited for one thing. We will get to see Pete Carroll's capstone. He'll have everything as he wants it. Rare in life. Very well, very well said. Very well said. Thank you for the donation. And yeah, very well said. You know, we truly where Pete's going to go out at the end of this is going to be on his own terms. He's going to get to decide how he wants to run this and doubling back down to the defense like he is. And I've maintained he's been on this path a little bit over the last couple of years, quite frankly. And this is why there's been the rift between him and Russell Wilson, because he's talked about it with his base philosophy and not deviating from that base philosophy. And I've advocated for the fact he should, that if he looks at some of the peers around him, that's exactly what they've done, is innovate, evolve, not just remain the same and static. But indeed he has. That's where he wants to stay. He trusts it. And he may well prove us all fools if it does proven out right, where he's able to build a super defense and they are able to tap into a level of dominant play that's somewhere near where we were nearly 10 years ago, and the team rises with it. That would be wonderful to see. Like you, Washington Fist Quest, I don't have, I think, a lot of confidence that he's going to be able to pull this off. I think he's trying to run upstream right now while everybody else is going on speedboats downstream. Like the rest of the NFL is like, you can just go downstream with and he's rowing up with a rowboat. You're going, dude, you're going the hard way, it looks like a little bit with this, but okay. All right. The hard way it is. Here we go. Strap in. Arms are going to get sore. Legs are going to get, just keep rowing. Keep on rowing. Carl Nerney with a $20 donation. Thank you, Carl. Man, you're awesome, brother. I appreciate you. Says, sorry, I just got here. Could you explain where we are at and what you see in the next 3 years with what we can truly expect? Well, Carl, this is definitely going to be me going way outside of the I know this is what's happening phase of things. That's for sure. This is merely on my part a little bit of a guess. Someone in the chat mentioned, I think above about this being a little bit like the 2011 season. I think that this definitely draws a lot of parallels to that 2011 season, Carl. Were you trying to lose and go not be good and you were trying to be competitive. You were, but you were still assembling the team at that point. And I think this next year is going to be a year of assembly, putting things together, finding what works, what doesn't, getting those foundational building block pieces in place, starting to look with an eye towards when you're going to bring your quarterback in, when the right time is, when the draft, or should you bring in a veteran? And certainly we know now, Carl, they're trying to build the defense up. So the hope here is that you're not going to maybe have a defense at a dominant stage. Maybe you get dominant next year, but at the very least, within a year from now, you have a dominant running defense at that point. They've honed it down. Sean Desai is running things from the background with Hurt, and they've got this thing running with a modernized approach. and they put the amount of investments and resources into the defense to where it then can be that level of team. That brings us over to the offensive side of the ball. Can you then win just running on the ball, asking the quarterback, Carl, to not do too much? I think they're going to end up running with a rookie quarterback or a young quarterback on a rookie deal, because I think that's the blueprint to 2012 and 2013, and they're operating off of that same kind of blueprint. So if we're in 2011 this year, then next year's 2012, that's when you grab your quarterback. That'd be the smart time to grab it. Get your young guy in here. Offensive line's a little more built up. Continue to finish off the offensive line. You have the defense dominating at that point. You could make the argument that then even by 2023, if you have a Williams from USC or a Will Levis from Kentucky at that point that you're bringing in, he's got a lot to work with right out the gate. He's got a lot of parts in place then to be successful, Carl, right then from that moment. That's your 2012 season. But then we get to then 2 years from now being your 2023 season. The defense is fully into prime shape. You've rounded out the offense. You've got your quarterback understanding the offense a little bit better with Waldron in the second year. And now you're hoping to kind of moonshot it probably at that point in 2025. That's the best. That's the way this plan looks to me, Carl. I know that, and this is me guessing, but that's the way it seems. Thank you for the donation, though. Very kind of you, sir. I appreciate you. Sam Z, what would be worse than last year's Broncos? James Watson seems. What's Broncos? I'm missing something on that. Jose Rodriguez says, "You think we do a collab soon?" Yeah, Jose, for sure, man. We get a little bit more time here, so we can definitely put something together. Let me hit you up on Twitter. I've been off there a little bit lately, but let me bop over into my DMs over there, and I'll hit you up. We can figure something out. James Watson, seems like a lot of people are in love with Pitt. Oh, sorry, I read that, James. Jeremy Elgin says, Baker isn't a good quarterback. He didn't do anything for the Browns with a stacked roster. Definitely think, Jeremy, to your point on that, he's limited. Not all that mobile, and I think that sometimes his arm strength gets a little bit overstated. I don't think he's got necessarily this rifle that some people, I think, kind of will tell you that he does. I think he's a bit better than some of the other options people are talking about out there, but not a guy that's going to get you into a competing status. Merck says he's being paid $18 million. You have to trade a pick and then maybe pay him after this year. It's a horrible move. He is not good, or he just got replaced on a decent team. Come on. Agreed. The Deck World. Hey, Brandon, why are so many fans desperate to go after something better at quarterback when we were just coming off of Russell Wilson? What exactly is the rush? Why can't we make everything around the quarterback in 2022? I think people get antsy. People think about the prospects of seeing a Geno Smith or a Drew Lock playing for 16, 17 games, and then they start thinking about that being a bad season, and then they start thinking about it being another year before they get to maybe even then see the quarterback, and then it's no guarantee even at that time you're seeing good quarterback play. So they just start, I think, looking out and saying, man, this is going to be long off. This is going to be far off before we're going to get any returns on this or see good football again. And that just makes people worried and flustered, and then they get panicked and they say, we got to get it now. And then they'll start talking themselves into certain prospects in this draft. That's all I can kind of make from it. I get where they're coming from with it, though. You lost Russell. You don't want to end up back in the stage where you have horrific quarterback play. It's tough to watch football games when the quarterback position is holding you back. It's not fun. Been there before. It's a painful experience. Jeremy Elgin says Willis is going to be gone at pick 6, I think. I think, Jeremy, you're pointing to 6 being Carolina, and Carolina is certainly fitting into that range of that desperation I'm talking about, where they feel like their roster's in a bit closer of a state to compete, and they're that team that's sort of left at the dance floor with no partner, as they don't seem to be very interested in Baker Mayfield. They got to figure out what they're going to do with Sam Darnold, and it's kind of has them sort of look around, going, "We're not sure here. Not too sure is what we're going to be doing here," and that could end up pushing them to Willis at that point, if that's who they end up liking. I do think, by the way, folks, the pro day stuff with these quarterbacks, with that stupid throw they do now, and I saw this last year popping up where they were all doing this crap, where it's, okay, you're going to roll one way, then you're going to flip your hips back around, then you're going to go back across the way and throw back across the body deep down the field, and give me a break with that stuff. You know what I mean? It's so, don't get hyped on that side. It's cool to see. It's fun. It makes a nice viral video, but come on, come on. And Malik's wasn't even all that impressive. Russell spins faster than him from the side he went. Come on. JB Hing says Bobby was talking to the Rams. Did he sign? Nope. Just that there is interest. I think Bobby's going to take his time. JP says next year quarterbacks are good. Let's wait for their quarterback and run the ball and play field position. The Pete way. The old Pete way. Sounds good to me, JP. I think that's the direction they're going. Joshua Schneider says, I think Schneider is talking to the Packers about a trade. That's what I look, this makes a lot of sense. This is part of why I'm broaching this subject, folks, is that it's not something that I want to see happen, but it's something that I think we got to prepare ourselves for the potentiality of could possibly be seeing. The Packers are now in a situation, look at their wide receiver core. They've got 3 guys right now. Randall Cobb, they got Amari Rodgers out of Clemson that they got last year, and I think Lazard. I think they got 3 guys. No number 1, no number 2, 2 number 3s. Lazard's like a number 4. They need some help. And if they're looking at a situation where they are now that they've decided they're going in on Rodgers here the next year or two, going out and grabbing Metcalf at that point could make sense. The one problem is with the Packers making that kind of deal is Packers, well, I guess they could because they could sign. They have now the money now because they had the money opened up for Devante Adams. So now they have the money theoretically opened up for DK Metcalf if they wanted to do the similar deal to him instead. So, and I think John Schneider with 2 first-round picks would find that proposition worth considering. Let's put it that way. Herbicide says, I don't trust Pete and John at all. Understandable. Ian Mills says DK would cost the team at least 1 first. I think he's going to cost multiple. Terrence Barbie says, I'm out if they trade DK. Can't quite blame folks if that would be something that would discourage you in a way that would make it hard for you to watch the team. You know, I get when folks don't want to watch a rebuild. I get when folks look at it and say that's a horrible product on the football field. I'm not going to watch it just because you're going to throw in my face. I'm not a fan if I don't. Like you guys got to do better than this. And they're putting a lot of L's and hanging a lot of L's around the Seahawks fans' necks this offseason. There's no better way to put it. And you're looking for a W somewhere, and there's not a lot of encouraging signs of it. And I can get where people are a little turned down on that a little bit and go, man, I'm kind of out right now a little bit. This ain't. I didn't sign up for this. Go Hawks. Go Hawks. Vibe says when you catch lightning in a bottle, you don't throw it away. That's right. You put it on the shelf. And you go look at that. It keeps going in the bottle. Right? It just keeps going. Just keeps spinning. It's spinning. In Tech World, also got to pay DK. It's pretty simple. He's way too young and way too good not to. Yes, sir. See, Hick Rock says DK is going to want the bag. $25 million a year won't get it done. It will get it done. Again, Hick Rock, every negotiation in football is driven by leverage. Leverage. Okay? So leverage is going to push everything along the path here, and this is no different in this situation. You can right now hold DK on a club control deal of a 3-year, $50 million. Okay? 3 years, $50 million. DK can come to you and say, I want $30 million. I want $35 million. I want $40 million. He can say all of that, but this doesn't happen in a vacuum. The team comes back and they say, we have your club control for the next 3 seasons at $50 million. We are prepared to force you to play through that. You can do that, or you can take a 4-year deal at $100 million. So Trockett, do you think he's going to say no at that point? Say, I'm going to ride it out, having never been paid in the sport a big contract yet? No, I don't think so. And it's usually, if you look at Crockett, just look also, for folks that still don't believe me on that, if you think he's still going to be paid with these guys, look at what guys make coming off the rookie deal versus making then into that second, third contract point of things. You know, the 3rd or 4th contract, you know, the Tyreek Hill spot where he is. There's a different spot from what that veteran gets on that next big deal when he's still somewhat in his prime, versus just coming off the first 3 years of that rookie deal. It's a different place. It's David, just got my DK jersey last Christmas. I would be really disappointed because I assumed he would be the one player guaranteed to be a Seahawks, at least for the near future, along with being one of my faves. I'd be with you on that. It's David. It would disappoint me too, man. I don't think you're helping the rebuild moving off. And picks are great to have, but you got a lot of picks going forward right now. You know, and salary cap space is good to have, but you already got a lot of salary cap going forward even after signing DK. It's not like our future is beset with a huge amount of contracts we're due to give out of players who've earned it going forward. JP Hanks says, do you expect anything else from Carroll? No, maybe not. Joshua Schneider says, I think Green Bay would give Seattle a 28, a third, and a fourth the most. Yeah, won't get it done. Won't get it done. Because we could just wait a year, have him ball out again next year, and then just move him next year and get more at that time. We're not driven by any sort of necessity or urgency if we're not getting what we're wanting. Again, leverage, folks. Leverage factors into all this stuff. Goaxo Ive says, let's get Eric Fisher. He definitely would seem like a viable target at this point, wouldn't he? UGK says DK is not a number one wide receiver and don't know if he develops into one, so can't pay him like number one. So I say move him. He's an incredible weapon and the best kind of number two wide receiver. So sell while he's hot. So I staunchly disagree with this position taken. And the thing, Yui, I know we're restricted in character counts on this one, but for the folks going, he's a number two or he's not a good receiver. It's if he's a number two receiver, why is he doubled at the same rate in the NFL as Devante Adams? I mean, that's the one thing I'm still looking for in the chat for somebody just to reference on. Like the 31 other NFL coordinators seem to view him like a number one wide receiver. Do they just not understand? Is it just his size is like tripping him out and like confusing him? And he's like Jedi mind forced him into thinking he's a number one wide receiver. And if they just left him one-on-one, again, there's two different stats, Huey, that I point you to. Number one, how DK Metcalf obliterates single coverage, which he absolutely destroys. So in those times you don't give him double teams, he destroys the coverage. And those stats are not based upon whether or not Russell Wilson throws him the ball, by the way. Those stats are based upon whether he's beating his man in his route. So he destroys double coverages. He destroys single coverage, and then he's basically the highest defended double-teamed wide receiver in the entire sport. You can talk to me all day about DeAndre Hopkins and every other wide receiver you want, Terry McLaurin, and go down the list. Those guys aren't doubled anywhere near, at least this last year, I'm going off the last year of full season data. They're not doubled anywhere near the same rate as DK Metcalf. So, like, those stats kind of point to him being a number one. And as I've said, it's not his fault if Russell just decides I'm not going to throw to him for 3/4 of this game because he's being double-teamed constantly. Especially understanding Russell's hesitancy to throw into double teams. But this is why we're having this debate. This is why it's a fun debate. Because I know that there's both sides that feel very strongly where they stand on this one. Chase Stern with a $5 donation says, what is your prediction on what happens with DK? I think we'll extend him. I do think this extension will get done, but I do also think that there's no certainties right now where this is at. And if they, just like the Chiefs reached with Tyreek, where they said, we're not paying that amount, no matter how revered you are here, no matter how much good football you still have left ahead of you, there just comes a point we're not going to pay. Seattle has that line as well. And we've seen this line as it's posed in free agency where they had over $50 million to spend, yet you didn't go after any of the top market guys. All of your signings have been tier 2, tier 3 players. Maybe like one tier 2 and then a bunch of tier 3s, basically. So this, team lately is not exactly looking to hand out really big market deals as it stands. Isn't basically Bobby Wagner the last really big market deal? Tyler made some money, but Tyler's making $14 million a year. Receiver market's set at like 27 right now. That's not, paying max prices on the dollar at that point. And they still built in a functionality to get out of the deal after a year, even in the way that they signed him. So I think it'll happen, but I don't have a lot of confidence in saying that, Chase. Charles Riley, the $5 donation, says, Pete's kind of dumb. If Willis is there at 9 and Schneider doesn't have the reins, as a lot of us hope, Pete will fall for the flash of a viral video. Well, thank you for the $5 donations, all your donations on the channel, Charles. And I could see him being the kind of guy that would fall in love with the viral video of that. Look, he's rolling to his left, back across his body, 65 yards, completes it. I guess. Especially too, Charles, because he's going to look at tape of Malik Willis. Somebody else did this on Twitter, so it's not me who did it, but very accurate in the way that they described Malik. When you look at the best of his tape, it looks like Russell Wilson. When you look at the worst of his tape, it looks like Russell Wilson. And a lot of his tape is that the bad of Russell Wilson look to it, not the great. It's more of the flashes of great and dipping into the bad at times. Yeah. Randall McDaniel with a $5 donation. Appreciate you, Randall. Says, where'd Jordan Love rank in this year's draft? If number 1, then why not include a DK trade? I wouldn't have taken Jordan Love number 1 in this draft. I wouldn't. Where does he rank off of his I didn't like his tape, Randall, so I guess some of this is going to be different than maybe the way the franchise or other general managers look at Jordan Love. But I had Jordan Love as like a third-round prospect coming out personally. I thought he got way overdrafted. So I put Jordan Love in the same context of a Carson Strong, I guess. I would put him maybe above Carson Strong at the top of the third round. So that would have him as the fifth quarterback taken. Willis gets taken ahead of him. Howell gets taken ahead of him. Ritter would get taken ahead of him, and Pickett would take it ahead of him. So he would be the 5th quarterback this year on my board, Randall. But again, this is my particular board, and I'm not particularly high on what are we talking about? Jordan Love. Benito Quevedo says DK's a number 1. What the F you on, boys? Agreed, Benito. Agreed. But I also say, Benito, there's a lot of divisive opinion on this, surprisingly so. JP says DK's good, still inconsistent, but a threat on every down. Defenses have to account for him, no doubt about that. Lavish P, we couldn't win with Russell on DK. We're going to go 0-16. We're at that. JPX, someone calls anyone offering anything that does not start out with a first and then click. That's right, JP. That's where we start, but there's going to be needing more than that. To me, I'm not letting him go for 2 firsts. I'll just play out next year and trade him next year at that point. If it's really only just like a first plus, then fine. Hold on to him for a year and move him next year. It's not like another year older at 25 next year. His value is going to be like considerably different then. Hayden Fawcett, I also think that you could take somebody like Kayvon or Cross at 9 and use your 2 seconds to pick Coral early second. Blue chip early with a later quarterback like Russ was. You could. Makes sense. Could make sense, Hayden. Definitely an approach they might take. There's a couple guys in the second round that could appeal to them too. There's truly guys that should go in that second round, that's where their value is. So it'd be about right. Rob Charles says, the one thing I don't like about DK is that he doesn't jump up and high point any catches. Certainly doesn't use his size and catching radius all the time to its max benefit, to your point on that, Rob. I agree with you. That's a part of his game that I would like to see continue to develop that's been a little bit slow to develop. Had one throw where Russell threw him one of those trust balls in recent years where he goes up and he just, he wants to bring everything sometimes into his body and cradle it rather than really go up for it. And it's like, you got to go all the way up. Get those long arms up there and reach. UE2K says Seahawks won't trade him this year because they have to try and win in order to save face on the Russ trade. Maybe, man. I don't know what they're winning right now. They got no tackles right now, and maybe. Joshua Schneider says, go Hawks. So you respond to go Hawks. My bad. Web Knight says, salute Brandon. Salute Web Knight. And do me a favor, folks, as Web Knight does mention, please do hit that like button if you do like what you're listening to here. I know it seems like something silly, but if you could do it for me, it does help me out. It does help me show up on other Seahawks channels and other NFL channel fan channels, looking for football channels. So it just helps me out a ton. I do appreciate it. And thanks. Jim Page is subscribed. Welcome aboard, Jim Page. Thank you for subscribing to the channel. Dijon Mustard. We just need a good pass rush. It'll fix secondary issues by default. I'm a believer in that mode of thought as well, Mustard. Build from the front to the back, and the front guys get there quick. Have a high pass rush win rate, which is, of course, you win in your pass rush in under 2.5 seconds. Well, that means my cornerback only has to cover for about 3 seconds. And it's a lot easier to cover a guy for 3 seconds than it is to cover a guy for 5.5 seconds if you have bad pass rush. Richard Gentry, DK is still on a rookie contract. Pay him, extend him before next year. That's the trek I take, Richard. That is the trek I take right now. Just get it done. Price is only going to go up for him. JP says Jordan Brooks is the new Bobby. Very true. Mariah, the Broncos keep posting so much on Twitter about Russell. Yeah, they've got Russell lust right now, that's for sure. That's for sure. So I can't blame him. I can't blame him. Steel design. Who do I want Seattle to take at number 9? Well, it. Unfortunately, at this point, it's being driven more to a need at this point than it's going to be driven towards picking the best player available on the board. I mean, I'd like to just, I would probably like to take, like one of Kayvon Thibodeau, Sauce Gardner, even Jermaine Johnson's starting to rise up my board into that spot where he'd be interesting. But unfortunately, I think you're going to be pushed to having to take one of the tackles here, where even if the top 3 tackles goes off the board, I mean, they may even go to like a Trevor Penning and go, let's go Trevor Penning. Let's go number 4 tackle at that point, where you're driven towards having to take the need because you have not a left tackle and not a right tackle right now, which is kind of scary. Kind of scary. So I think you're driven more to need at that point. But I like those other guys better as far as I'd really like to be drafting more for potential at 9 rather than getting the safe guy that's going to be an upper level starter in the league. Like I'd rather be having that mindset applied deeper into the draft, even in the 20s in the first round, for instance. UE2K says Russ didn't trust DK in double coverage. DK is not a hands catcher. He's a body and arm catcher. Don't get me wrong. He's a terrifying weapon that teams are worried about, just not great hands. I agree with you there. I don't think that he has great hands. I do think, though, too, UE2K, I don't think it's a matter of Russ didn't trust DK in double coverage. I think UE2K, Russ doesn't throw the ball into double coverage normally. We've seen him do it before, but I don't think that that's a track that he likes to take more often than not. And if he sees a team that's got a guy that's being doubled at 30% of the snaps, it's very easy at that point for a quarterback to fit into a mindset of like, well, he's just getting double teamed every time. I'm going to look somewhere else. I don't want to spend every pre-snap looking to just wait. Is the double team there on this? Do I have to factor that in my read, or I can just go to this other side of the field where I know it's single coverage? My tendency is to think it goes more to that than it is that he didn't want to throw to DK in double coverage because of hands issues. This is also backed up by Russell not being an anticipatory thrower of the football, right, Huey? If he's even, he's leaving. Like Russell never really applied that. Russell wanted to see him already leaving, and then he would throw it. And if you see a guy who's leaving, but then there's a double coverage coming into track, that's not going to fit into Russell's mode of thought in the way that he's going to play the position, which is try to protect the football and really avoid interceptions kind of at all costs. Part of which was driven by Coach Carroll in his ear pumping that up. Herbert says, I just don't think Russ is worth Watson money. Don't think Watson is worth Watson money. I agree there. Landon, if the Rams sign Bobby, I will be pissed. How do the Rams keep pulling money out of their butts? Because they're going for it, man. They're not worrying about some future point where they're trying to sell a football team in 2 years from now. Or they have an owner that's kind of hands off. Or they've got a coach who's just happy to win more football games than he is to lose at this stage in his career. You've got a team truly going for it, truly trying to ascend and get championships. And that takes a mindset. That's not just like, well, one of these years we'll luck our way into being a super competitive team rather than just a quasi-competitive team. I think you've got to, in this day and age, establish that mindset. And it takes a level of aggression that our front office has not showed that they're willing to apply. B-Ross, Hawks should have given DK 23 to 25 million a year immediately and not tiptoed around waiting for these giant contracts to push this cost up. Then again, maybe DK wanted to wait. Yeah, hard to say on that. I mean, don't really know for sure one way or another, B-Ross. It would have been nice to sign him earlier, but we just don't know whether that was a possibility or not at that price. Rob Terrell, we need starting tackles and a quarterback before we sign DK to an extension. Oh, we might wait. Caleb Clemens says trade to Falcons. You guys certainly need some receiver help at this point, don't you? And you do have a high first-round pick in this draft. Merck says if Russ is paid Watson money, we definitely won the trade. Oh, he's going to be paid Watson money, folks. If not the portion of the cap, which is what they're going to come for, is probably 20% of the cap every year. If they don't get that, then it's going to be a heavily guaranteed contract. Much like what Watson got, and probably of the variety that's like 5 or 6 years or something weird like that. So, yeah, you're going to see definitely Russ in that stratosphere. Corey says, that's my point. If the Jets gave us their first round pick and said best second and third in this draft and a third and a fourth in next year's draft, I'd take it. If anything less, he isn't worth it. Agreed. Terrence Barber says, does this fan base understand football? Randall says, bringing in Cap will be pouring gas on a fire. Fan base already divided because of Russ and Bobby. Some will love Cap, others hate it. Screams PR move. That's what it screams to me too. And again, this situation, and to your point on this, is kind of delicate right now. And I just don't know if the timing is really good to be doing this kind of thing. B says, do you think 49ers would trade Garoppolo to us being in the same division? No. I would wait for his price tag to drop, but I feel like he would be a decent fit, high-level game manager, quarterback. It's one of those things, B, that just is a rule of thumb in football. Nobody really particularly understands or knows why, but you see it across the board in every single division, and that is that you just don't tend to trade players within the division. Doesn't matter whether they're quarterback, receiver, on the defensive side of the ball, it just doesn't happen. And I don't think the Niners would be in a position to want to do that either. They're not going to want to help us out in any way, shape, or form. Unless they just think they're dropping on us damaged goods that they know is just going to make us suck even more, which I wouldn't put it past them. But I don't think they would make that trade with us. Nor would I want to make the trade for Garoppolo. I'm not a big Garoppolo guy. I think that'd be a bad fit. That's definitely again one of that middle road approach where you're not truly rebuilding and you're not really truly going to be a competitive team. You're just trying to be a little bit better than average. And I ask you all out there. I pose the question. What is that worth to y'all? Zap916, Jimmy G, the Seahawks. No, folks, interdivision trades don't happen in the NFL. Teams just don't do that. Every once in a while, maybe, but just it's a rule of thumb. Pretty hard and fast. Lil Sticks K says there's no point in getting rid of DK unless we can't figure out the quarterback in the next 3 years. Well said, man. And I agree. That's a good way of putting it. Corey Olson, I think it was more Russell than DK. Russ totally shut him down at times. I don't know why. Corey, this is what I agree with 100%. This is why I keep latching on to that stat that I'm posing to the folks where I say, look, in single coverage, he's destroying single coverages according to the advanced statistics. And he's being double teamed as high as any other player in the NFL. So when Russell should be seeing him then, so by this, let's just go through this train of thought logically, right? As a quarterback, understanding the statistics, and believe me, the team and their analytic departments bring these numbers to the quarterback. So you then as Russell get that information, and a normal quarterback should process that, well, he's double teamed a lot of that period of time, but when I do get him into single coverage, I want to feed that beast. And my tendency is that Russell would just look away from him at times. And there's so many shots over the last couple of years of them showing all 22 during the game where DK would break wide open. And all of you would start to call him a diva at that point because he's like stomping at the end of the play because Russell's not throwing to him. And you all will go, well, look at the diva he is. Look how diva he is. Why is he being so diva? But then those same people would come and say, well, he's not even that really a good receiver. He's good, but he disappears. Those kind of plays sit in my mind, and I go, Russell's ignoring him at times. Russell's not doing a good job of working his number one wide receiver, and that's not DK's fault, in my opinion. But I do get it if it's, again, people go on the other side of this, but I feel pretty passionately about this. TLG Kevin, I don't want to abandon the 12s, but this offseason is looking like it. I've been a fan since they won the Super Bowl. It's been a bit of a tough one. Yeah. It's not been good. This might be one when we look back in history going, boy, that was our dark ages of an offseason right there in our Seahawks history. GM BJE says, Jets fan here. We will give you pick 35 and 38 and next year's third for DK. No. The going price is 2 first-round picks. Bottom line. We have 3 years of club control at $50 million of DK. We don't have to move him. Players can't hold out anymore. We don't have to move him. Hit our asking price, or Jets fans, you can continue to suck. You can continue to walk out Denzel Mims out there. How's that working out for you, huh? How them Baylor wide receivers working out for you Jets fans? You gonna be that stingy with your picks? You gonna be that happy trying to watch Wilson trying to rip it over to Mims? You want top shelf? You're paying top shelf prices. and a second-round pick ain't top shelf prices. You dig? Pearl Haggard says Kaepernick belongs here. I could sense your tone, Pearl, all the way through on that one, and I'd love it. JC Dog says Baker and Cap. Nah, that's okay. Thanks, but no thanks. Me too at this point. Jesse Land, I would take Tyreek over DK, no question. I love DK. We would be lucky to get a first and a second for him, though. Super unproven player so far. I don't understand. I'm not trying to rail too hard on this, Jesse. I just don't understand this thought process. You've had a guy in Steve Largent who retired as the all-time leader in receptions, yards, touchdowns, games with a consecutive catch. Had an amazing start to his career. Yeah, again, Joey Galloway came here in the 90s. Lit the world on fire. Amazing start to his career. Neither of those two guys after their third season were fans looking at and going, he's okay. They're okay. Galloway's okay. Largent's, he's okay. Nobody was. But for some reason with DK, who in his first 3 years has beaten both of those two players in catches and yards and touchdowns, both of them, we have these questions raised about him. I don't get. And the only thing I'll contend with is that, again, that stat that I go to with being double teamed as much. If Tyreek, the speed burner, the cheetah, if he's so much better of a wide receiver than DK Metcalf, if he's just that much better of a guy, and you look at that Chiefs team, and quite frankly, in my opinion, unless you're considering Travis Kelce the number 2 there, their number 2 receiver wasn't the equivalent of Tyler Lockett. And DK's being doubled more than that guy. Kind of seems like, at least in general, broad stroke terms, 31 NFL defensive coordinators are sort of telling you, yeah, this guy's more dangerous. This guy over here that we're doubling at basically the highest rate in the league, he's more dangerous than that little cheetah guy. Cheetah guy is scary. This guy's just a little more scary to us. And if he's not more scary, at least he's on an equivalent level. Rob Murphy, would you take a second round for him? No. Locke is reliable and an incredible receiver. He is. If you mean Lockett, then I'll take a second for him. Not DK. Not DK, man. Charles Riley with $5 donations says, I think Pickett is hurting himself by trying to extend his hand size. I tried the same thing with an organ. I won't mention, and it was never the same. That's right. How about Pickett coming to his pro day with like 3/4 of an inch longer fingers? Man, that is up in his head at that point, right? Is he just in his closet, like hanging off the rail and just trying to stretch those fingers out? They got the climbing boards for fingers now, just trying to pull them apart. Did he do some like ligament surgery, you think, Charles, where they had Pickett go under the knife and they like where they do leg extensions on people and tried to pull the bone apart or something? Maybe he's got cybernetics in there now. He's owning the 2 gloves though. I'll give him that. He hasn't ditched the both gloves for his pro days, so he's all in on it. He's all in. Beef Panda Gaming. Thank you for the $7 donation, Beef. Appreciate you. Says, just imagine Pete sitting in his office in the dark. John comes in and asks Pete, so what will it be? Pete says, I just want to watch the world burn. Well said, Beef. Really well said. That's such an underrated comment, and I appreciate the donation. It's a little bit of like where I see right now, where it is. There's like this hard-headed mentality of, I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it my way. You know, Pete Carroll, if you guys have ever seen this movie Tin Cup, you guys know I love my references. There's a movie Tin Cup, really underrated comedy with Kevin Costner as this golfer that never made it but could have been something, but his mentality holds him back in the movie. And he finally gets his chance to go to the Masters and play the Masters, and he's playing really well, and he's got a shot where he can try to drive it for the green or lay it up. And he has a fight with his caddy where he just won't lay it up. And the caddy's like basically quits on him at that time because he's seeing him go off the rails on this. And he takes out the 3-wood, hits it, knocks it into the water, and then proceeds for the next 15 strokes of the movie to just drop a ball, hit another ball into the water, totally sinks his chances at that point in the tournament, kills his whole thing that he did, that he built up for years to even go up there and get that chance. And that's what it feels like with P right now. It's like he's that guy dropping the ball, trying to swing with the same stroke, the same club, and it's going in the water, and he's like, give me another ball. Give me another ball. Another ball. It's kind of like how it feels. Well said, though, Beef. Hoodie Jew. What's up, Hoodie? Thank you for the $5 donation, and congrats, Hoodie. You got your man Jameis Winston back in the building, so you got to kind of know what you were looking to get on that Saints situation for your team there. So interesting there. Interesting. Appreciate the $5 donation. He says, Tyreek trade was crazy, and this is probably one of the craziest off seasons yet, man. I would say that it has been as wild as I've ever seen. The moves being made, the huge swings being swung, the amount of teams that are going for it and trying to push themselves into a contender stage, and the way you can feel teams being pushed by other teams. That you can see the Broncos go and make the trade for Russell Wilson, and then all the other teams in that division go, oh, we got to start bringing our A game. We got to start spending some money. We got to start making some trades. And you're still seeing, I think, even with this Tyreek Hill trade, even a little bit to a degree of that fallout from that with the Chiefs going, we got to build this into long-term strength. We can't just lean on top-end guys now. We've got to fill this thing out. So it's been an insane offseason, Hoodie. It's been wild to watch. As a Seahawks fan, it's been pretty largely depressing. But, that's what a rebuild is too, though. So, like I said, you got to, what do we say? We trust the process, own the process, embrace the process. We're doing something with the process. I don't know what it is quite yet, but we'll soon see. And Beef Panda Gaming, Charles Riley, Randall McDaniel, Carl Nerney, Chase Stern, Washington FizQuest, thank you. Gold Cox 2022, thank you for all the donations. Very kind of you. Dave Pearson has subscribed, and he is an awesome man for doing so. UGK says Love looked absolutely lost in the one game he played this last year. He couldn't even move the ball. Yeah, he did. I already didn't like his tape. Then you watch him against Kansas City this year, and I watched that whole game. My reference for it is he was deer in the headlights from the first quarter through the fourth quarter. At no point in time did he settle in or get comfortable. He was just completely spastic the whole way through. Kyle says, no guarantee we'll ever see a player like DK again. Well said, and I agree. Yeah. Mark Death, the thing about a quarterback next year is Bryce is short, and Strong might have the Ohio State bust curse. And that is slim pickings. Well, Mark, Death too, though, the thing that I always counter with this a little bit with this, because you're right, there's still question marks with those two guys. My guy right now is Will Levis, personally. So I got a guy even higher than those two guys on my current list. But let me just acknowledge and take his name away to lean into your point a little bit on this. I think there's always a couple quarterbacks that come up through this last year and really burst onto the scene too. And so there's guys that we're not even considering or really talking about yet in these terms that will then become those guys. If we look at given history, the given history is that there's usually about 2 to 3 guys every draft that are legitimate top-end first-round quarterbacks that you can select somewhere in probably the top 15 picks. That tends to be about the average. This year happens to be one year where you don't have really any quarterbacks who should be deserving of being picked in that top 15 area. None. Zero. So I lean back more to even beyond the players you mentioned, just to historical norms, being that those guys tend to be available and go, I'll wait around till we get to that and see where we land. As well as, let's acknowledge this too. If we don't find the quarterback in the draft next year, there's a new model in town. There is a new model in town. And that model is that you can go get quarterbacks from teams that once were never available. Stafford's moving town. Watson's moving town. Russell Wilson's moving town. Guys are now a little bit more on the move as far as in the quarterback position. So you're not just always having, I prefer them going rookie quarterback, but if they really got pushed up into a corner marked and they had to make a decision, well, maybe there's an alternate path there at that point. Emmett Brown says, DK fanboys, welcome to the Pete Carroll Show. 2 more years the old man. Bet Peter's comments got a lot nervous. They got me nervous, Emmett. They got me nervous. Huey says, why is DK doubled? 1, he's the Seahawks' most dangerous weapon. He's an instant touchdown, just add football. 2, he's pretty easy to double. He can only beat speed if you let him run by you. He's only got speed. I completely disagree, Huey. I think he's come very far as his route running go. You can knock him if you want a little bit as far as his maybe his hands go, but he's come very far as route running. His yak has also improved. Yards after the catch has also considerably improved over that time period. I don't know what that means. He's easy to double team. That's why they double him. And again, I noticed that you're glossing over Tyler Lockett and his impact. You have another receiver opposite from him that's got 1,000 yards over there. So that doesn't really add up there. He's easy to double team because he's got speed. I highly disagree with that. I'm not saying he's Devante Adams as a route runner, but this trope of still coming from his old Miss days that he only somehow runs like 3 routes of the route tree is not what I'm seeing on Sundays. I'm seeing a lot different than that. And you don't double team a guy. To your point, if he's dangerous, he's dangerous. You can add whatever other attributes on top of that to try to gloss over that fact, but he's dangerous, perhaps one of the most, if not the most dangerous wide receiver in the sport. And if you can't find a way to utilize that within your offense to allow for your offense to explode, you're doing something wrong at that point. That's not DK's limitations. That's not his drawbacks at that point. That's your coaching staff and your offensive coordinator effing that up. Because if I'm a top offensive mind, if I'm a Mike Holmgren with a DK Metcalf, guess what? I'm going to turn that receiver into nearly a 2,000-yard wide receiver with this extra game of the season. I bet you Mike would. I bet you he would. So again, some of the limitations to me in DK's game are there. He's not a perfect player, but again, the start of his career he's had and understanding some of what's caused a lack of necessarily having production that's not quite at 1,500 yards a season go beyond his control. A stagnant offense, a quarterback with certain limitations, being double teamed as much as he was. I think some of the folks throwing the shade a little bit DK's way aren't factoring quite enough of these other factors that come into play on this. Jacob Kessinger with a $20 donation. Thank you, Jacob. Man, I appreciate you, brother. You're awesome. It says DK's ceiling is a Hall of Fame. He could be a guy to change the way the wide receiver position is looked at. He's still young and got plenty of years in the league. DK's worth 2 first-round picks or a giant haul if he's always open when not double teamed. Agreed. I well said, Jacob, and that's exactly where I stand on it too. You've got a guy right now where he's at. He's going to be on a Hall of Fame trajectory where he goes. With his age, with the amount of years he has in front of him, certainly injury is going to factor into it and all that. But he's on that type of trajectory. And I just don't think you're going to find a guy like this coming down the track any other given year. And we'll just get another guy just like him next year if we just move on from him. And then we'll just build up. I think people will be surprised. I mean, harder to find. And I'll say this too. We've had some okay wide receivers through this time period of Lockett, and your Paul Richardsons, and your Doug Baldwins. It was a tough period finding a top flight, like number one receiver like DK prior to getting to DK here. You've always had guys that can almost get to that one. They're almost a number one. They almost are kind of there. But you did so much trying to trade from early on. Coach Carroll was trying to bring in Brandon Marshall, and then the Dolphins offered more picks, so he couldn't bring him in when Marshall was in his prime. Then he went after Vincent Jackson, and then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offered more than we could offer for that. So you didn't get him there. Took you 10 years to basically get to a point of getting a true number one wide receiver. Now we're going to push him out the door for reasons? For reasons? I don't know, man. I don't understand. DBH says trade Metcalf for 10 and 35. Grab Garrett Wilson and draft Stroud. Okay. Eagles Gang with a $5 donation. What's up, Eagles Gang? Says, hey, Eagles fan here. We got the best package for y'all for DK. We got 3 first-round picks, and we can give you 1 or 2. What are the best? We are the best teams to trade with. Agreed, Eagle. And why I've said I don't think this should be one of those situations where you don't move a player within your conference because you're scared of him. You're scared of him coming back and hitting you up because of the fact that at the end of the day, you're not in a position to compete really right now. Certainly, if you move off DK, you're really not in a position to compete even more so. So it shouldn't prevent me either. I will say Eagles. We've been talking about this with some other fans coming in here. We got Packer fans kind of coming in cheap. I'm sorry, folks. I'm sorry, cheeseheads. You guys are coming in offering light. Jets fans, you're coming in offering light. Look at the Eagle fan. Eagle fan comes in here, $5 donation, being respectful, offering legitimate picks. You're giving us value here, Howie Roseman. You're giving us value. If we got to offload this guy, the sensational talent who's still young, you're paying top shelf prices. So I like where your head's at, Eagle. That's probably what this is going to take. And if you come calling to our Seattle Seahawks with 2 of your first-round picks for DK right now, I don't think you have. I think if you did, I think John Schneider and Coach Carroll would have a hard time turning that down. Edward Locke with a $10 donation. Thank you, Edward Locke. I appreciate you. Very kind of you. Says, had a contract for current Seahawks player. He said Russ holds the ball too long and Edward Locke with $10 donation says, had a contract for a current Seahawks player. So Edward had a contract with a current Seahawks player. He said Russ holds the ball too long and is bad in a quick read offense. Also told me John and Pete don't click on some personnel decisions. Another $2 donation with Edwards on top of that. He says, he did say to trust this process without Russ, though. Well, that's awesome to hear, Edward, and thank you for the donation. This is exactly with what my evaluation is on Russ. I loved Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, I think, can still go out there and be a top-flight quarterback in a certain kind of offense. But my kind of bold prediction with Russ in Denver, for instance, is that Denver's not going to get the full fruits of Russell Wilson until they slide him out of the West Coast offense, which, to your point in your comment of the quick read offense, which is what the West Coast offense is. And Russ is not fit for that offense. He's more of, to me, a power run game offense to take deep shots over the top. And yeah, this is one of the reasons why I'm driving hard on this DK point to the folks that throw shade at DK, is you've got to take a little bit of an acknowledgement when looking at DK that Russell Wilson, though we like the narrative out there is these guys were a perfect fit. Russ's moonball, DK's speed, it was like a match made in heaven, hand to glove. But it really kind of wasn't. Because outside the deep balls, the in-between stuff wasn't as much of a match between those guys. It just wasn't. And again, I'm not saying DK is perfect. The hands thing is worth mentioning. He doesn't have god-awful hands, but he's got some questionable hands at times. I think the modern equivalent a little bit for what DK is a little bit of a modern-day Terrell Owens. And guess what? Terrell Owens, throughout the course of his entire career, had some issues with drops. Did it prevent him from being a Hall of Fame receiver, despite the fact he was still a locker room cancer? Nope. Still a game changer, still a game breaker, still a guy that, take away his off, I wouldn't want him on my roster for off-field stuff, but as the player he was and what he provided to your football team, helped your team out, helped your team win. We need more of those guys to me at this point rather than less. But that's very interesting, Edward, and thanks for the inside info. Always like the inside info from you guys here on the chat. So it's interesting to hear a player say that, and there are whispers from within this locker room and coaching staff about the fact that supposedly, there's a little bit of this thought process on, okay, Russ forced this trade, but the opening of the front office to also move on from him was also a little bit of an indication that they feel like and think maybe, especially within this new offense, Waldron offense, this West Coast offense, that perhaps there were elements of Russell's game that was holding them back in starting to embrace this offense and bring it along. I'm not trying to throw full shade on Russ here. It's a matter of a fit situation, and I think there's a strong argument to be made he's not exactly fit for that. The differences in opinion, Edward, definitely make a lot of sense between John and Pete. Certainly would explain a little bit of their strange approach to roster building, where it doesn't always seem to be cogent. You do this, and then you go do that, and then you're up here, and then you're doing that, and we're just looking for kind of a plan in play. Everyone's got their certain plan they're trying to enact, and with this team, it sometimes seems like they just go all over the map. We'll do some of this, and we'll do some of that, and let's get some of this, and let's get some of that. Rather than, no, we're going to start here, and then we'll go there, and then it's going to be this. So that makes sense. It makes sense if that is the case with them not clicking as much, that is going on in the background to at least a small degree. Also, maybe that there's a little bit of that built in, Edward, as far as hearing that maybe Carroll ceded over some of his vice presidential control to Schneider this offseason in the background. Charles, you killed the chat with that comment. Oh, jeez. Cliffick says, I don't know why, but I feel like Pickett falls to the number 3 quarterback. I think he's the 4th guy taken. I think Hal gets taken in front of him. So I think it goes Willis, Ritter, Hal, Pickett, Carson. Lolo, if you aren't willing to pay a young generational talent in DK Metcalf, then when will you ever be? regardless of the situation you're in. Make moves or always be irrelevant. Well, I agree with you there, Lolo. To give the people, and I know I'm pushing it back against the people that are anti-paying DK, but let me try to, play devil's advocate from their position on this, Lolo, and that's that they would maybe say, look, regardless of generational talent, when you're paying a receiver this amount of money at this rate, it's the equivalent of paying the quarterback 15% or more. And that once you put your foot in that particular bucket, you can't really take yourself out in that time period to think you're going to be up in that level and to be that team that can go out there and win it. Patriots won for years without paying wide receiver money out there, right? Giants won a couple titles without really having the number one wide receiver they were paying gargantuan money to. So there's also been other examples. I mean, we're coming on the year where the Rams won the Super Bowl with Cooper Kupp winning the royal crown, the triple crown of wide receiver stats. So we are also there's other sides to this as well. It ain't just the data's defiant that like the quarterback situation where you just can't win a Super Bowl if you're paying a quarterback 15% or more of your salary cap. Bottom line, that's it. But I can see where they're operating intelligent in this approach too. You're in a rebuild mode, so I can get where they're coming from, Lolo. They'd say, look, if you're not in a stage to be able to be truly competitive, offload an asset for maximum returns right now, rather than letting the assets get depressed or pay the assets money and then be, having it at the point in time when you're ready to click forward, have to need a little bit of dead money then from this player who at that point's not in the same stage of his career. And I can get where they're coming from on. I disagree, but I can see where they're coming from with it. B says, Russ went to Hollywood after being with Sierra. Never the same after that. Remember when Romo was with Jessica Simpson? Worst year he ever had. Just date when you're a star quarterback. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, well, meanwhile, Garoppolo's out there killing it, right? Dating everything. So, hey, to your point on that. You know what I mean? To your point. Yeah, I would, I don't know, man. It's already hard enough playing quarterback than to have a star wife. They just would add a tough dynamic, I would think. Go to Field Vault says, do you think DK could be traded to the Chiefs? Go to Field, I think that the Chiefs are the number one team to make this, to be the team to go for DK. Because they have the money to spend, that they were willing to come near where Tyreek was being paid. So they'll come close to that mark. And they have the 2 first-round picks late in the first round, which would be about associated value for DK. So I could see them being aggressive from that standpoint. Tony Daniel says the Corral slander is goofy. Our wide receivers at Ole Miss are slow and average. Yeah. I mean, Tony, here's the thing about Corral. I was watching film on him all through the year, and I said, the guy's slight. The guy's going to get injured in the NFL. He's not going to be able to hold up against big NFL bodies. And then he gets broken at the college level with his little tiny ankles. You see the guy like Baker Mayfield in that 6'1" 6'1.5" camp, whatever, weighing 200 pounds. Like your body just can't sustain the punishment. Some guys can't. I don't think Corral will be able to. And he's got a snappy delivery, a quick delivery. He's accurate. He throws with anticipation inside of 15 yards. Everything else outside of that area of things, I don't think that he's got the arm strength to really push the ball up the football field. Everything that I saw on the deep throws I've watched, and I've watched now about 5 or 6 games of Corral, almost on all the deep throws, he's got to do this crow hop thing to get a little bit of extra momentum to go forward, to get the ball launched deep. And that's not going to work for me. Not for me. I lean to needing the arm strength. Brian Harris says, trade DK to KC for a first, a second. Brian, we get 2 firsts. 2 firsts. They got 2 firsts to have. They give us 2 firsts. That's our beginning point. But Brian says first, second, or fourth. Rebuild from the foundation. Dave Pearson, Seahawks should pick Sauce. Offensive tackle, defensive line for the rest of the draft would make them better. I'd be okay with that, Dave. You're certainly going to be playing a little bit of the Russian roulette with the tackle situation at that point, and hoping then that there isn't a run of tackles as you're maybe potentially walking into that draft without a left tackle, without a right tackle. Could get a little dodgy. Just a little dodgy. UGK says, Russ used to throw to a double-team Baldwin and repeatedly threw to a tightly covered Lockett and Curse. To tightly covered is not the same thing as double-teamed, and Baldwin was not double-teamed at a high rate, Huey. But Baldwin was never double-teamed at even a teen rate. So if DK Metcalf was double teamed at 27.5% this last season, there was never a point that Baldwin was even double teamed at a 10% rate. Nah. You can maybe find a throw or two to Baldwin where you see him maybe thrown there, but Baldwin operated out of the slot, which, as we've seen with Cooper Kupp, part of the part of why Cooper Kupp is unstoppable at times is because it's sometimes damn near impossible to double a guy in the slot without wrecking your defense. That's why it's a lot easier for a slot receiver to be so productive from that point. But yeah, agree to disagree. Emmett says, y'all know Pete Carroll are Baker and Coral fans. We're screwed, laughing out loud. 2 more years of incompetence. Dave Pearson says Lockett's a $31 million cap hit this year. He won't leave this year. Dave, I don't know if it's clicked in or not. There was a story that broke out about a week ago or so that if Seattle can, and maybe it's already passed, but if they were going to reach a roster bonus point here with Lockett, where if it passed that roster bonus point, then they were on the hook for the dead money hit you're talking about. But if not, they could get out from under the contract with only a $7 million dead money hit. Again, I don't know if that period is passed or not, but that was one of the reasons you were hearing about, Dave, a week and a half ago, some of the Lockett rumors that were out there percolating. Junaid Davis says Baldwin was super underrated. He's a very good receiver. Tony Daniel, Lockett would look good in a Steeler gold too. Yeah. Throw us the 3rd round pick. You got him. He's all yours. All yours. Charles Riley with the $5 donation. Thank you, Charles. He says, Brando Corleone. An Eagles fan requests a meeting about DK at Eagles Gang. Says they are the team to deal with. He offers up 2 firsts. Is this respectful? It's very respectful, man, Charles. That's what I'm saying. He's coming in here right. Eagles fans, you just leveled up in my department with that offer. I got these Jets fans coming in. They're being nice, but you ain't coming in with a real offer. You're coming in here to pick off the carcass. Like, oh, there's a little liver. We can fry that up. Ooh, look, there's some meat on the rib. Let's tear off some of that. No. You come in, comes in with a nice donation, offers 2 first-round picks. That's the right way. This is why the Eagles organization is running a little stronger, frankly, Jets fans. Okay? I'm just going to say, one could say maybe this is a little bit of a reason why you're in kind of state you are. You know, I'm just saying. Bumbo's bounce. Everybody got injured in Arizona. Everybody always gets injured in Arizona. UE says the teams that are paying wide receivers top dollar have assembled great wide receiver groups, not just 1 or 2 guys. A plethora of weapons are required in today's game. Well, there we agree 100% on that for sure. Joshua Schneider says, how old is Lockett? I think he's 29, 30. Michael, Pro DK traders, give me one good reason to trade DK. I'll wait. Ricardo Edmondson, Denver seems to be taking a wait-and-see approach before committing $50 million a year to Russ, especially should the Broncos finish 3rd in the AFC West. I don't think so. I think this was part of the negotiations of the trade situation with the Broncos, where they told Russell Wilson, okay, Russ, we're trading for you, and we want to go for it in this first year, but you're going to have to wait a year to get paid. Because if we pay for you this year, we're not going to be able to build the roster in the way we need to build it. Russ, I think, is going to be okay with this because he wants to truly look good in this first year in the Bronco uniform. Now, he's going to come for the bank the year after. You know, he's coming for all the money the year after. But I do think that, Ricardo, this was a little bit of a negotiated situation between all camps prior to the trade happening. I don't think they're reacting to anything, right now. Kyle says, why is always the quarterback that is always so unhappy to the media? Rodgers and Wilson. I don't see all the highest paid receivers lately embarrassing the team. Pathetic. Well, Kyle, like I said, we were through I like to say in the 90s and the 2000s, we were in the diva age of wide receivers. Everything from your Chad, I'm going to change my name to Ocho Cinco, Terrell Owens, even Jerry Rice had a little bit of diva-ishness in him. And now we've moved on to the age of the diva quarterback. It's evolving. Emmett says, I bet the front office front-loaded all these contracts to give them an excuse to not re-sign DK. Pete's like, we just didn't have the cap space. Oh, Emmett, he's already laying the groundwork. We'd like to get a deal done before the start of training camp. We'd like to. We're going to try to. We're really trying hard. We tried like the Dickens. Just couldn't get it done. Yeah, I'm feeling the same thing coming down the trek on this one. That's why I kind of am raising this up as a subject on this show right now, you know. It's because I'm worried about it. I'm annoyed by it. I don't want to see it. Joshua Snyder says, thank you guys. Seattle fans are pretty cool. Well, you're pretty cool too, Joshua. I give Jets fans a little bit of ribbing or Pack fans ribbing, but we love all here. B says, I'm excited to see the 3-4 defense. Wanted a long time ago. Use Adams as an outside linebacker in that set and even rush the quarterback from different spots. Drop back in coverage at times as well. I think we're going to see him all over the place, man. All over the place. Mark Death says it feels like Lockett's around 39. It's just his receding hairline. It throws you off, you know. Lolo, Cooper Kupp is an amazing receiver, but he's nowhere near the perfect route runner that Baldwin was. Adams is up there. I don't know. Kupp might at least be an equivalent to Baldwin, man. Comes a point with the production with him where it's like, gets undeniable. Mark says, what about prying Hunter Renfrow from Vegas? I don't think they're going to want to let him go. Josh McDaniels is going to want to run a lot of spread concepts that he utilized in New England. That means you need receivers across the board at that point. Hunter works very well with what they want to do. He'll be their little Wes Welker type. Eagles gang says, hey man, I'm an Eagles fan. We got 3 first-round picks. We can give up one for DK. Listen, we have the best package for DK. You got to give up 2, man. You got to give up 2. How many years are left on Lockett's deal, Joshua? 3. But the thing about that is that you're only on the hook at that point for the base money because we would then eat, I think, all of the bonus at that point if we moved him. I got to double check on that because that roster bonus is the important part of that deal. Alexander Matthews, Cap has not played in 5 years. He would probably be a third-string quarterback or the practice squad. Agreed. Agreed. Mark Death, are there any veteran centers left in free agency? I think everybody's been signed at this point, Mark, for Death. I mean, everybody's gone. It's done. They did sign a center, so Austin Blythe was brought in. You did get somebody, but that's it. It done. Mark says, well, I'll be checking out. I think I have to late night beating of meat steak, of course. Kind of too hard to pass up on this beating, so be back in 5 minutes. Okay. I hope that's not a euphemism, Burke. I hope that's not a euphemism, something else. Tony Daniel, DK was beating people left and right. Russ was missing him. This season was on Russ, in my opinion. Tony Daniel, I lean with you on this. I think Russ was slow to develop in this West Coast scheme. I don't think it's a fit for him. I think it was a hard learning curve for him. I still think Russ can be very good in this league. I'm not throwing Russ under the bus of like sucking. I'm not saying that. But I am saying that when I come to looking at DK and I go, why does he disappear times? Why is he not being featured as much? Why are there times where he seems to be ignored by our quarterback? Well, sometimes, cigar is just a cigar. And sometimes your quarterback's just ignoring a great wide receiver. As crazy as that sounds, that's just what was happening for large swaths of games during the course of this season and last season. Lolo, there are literally compilations about Baldwin having insane routes, receivers and videos dedicated to Doug's route running skills. Oh, he was awesome. He was awesome, no doubt about it. Always compete. Maybe we are going to draft our tackles this year. Penning is a beast. Might be a stretch at 9. It's a little early for me with that whole always compete. To be honest with you, I've not loved Penning's tape as much as everybody else does. I'm not as blown away by his nastiness as people do. He shoves a guy's head into the turf on Senior Bowl day. That doesn't do much for me. It really doesn't. And, I thought he should have been way more dominating on his tape considering the level of competition that he was playing against. And I just didn't always see it like I wanted to see it. But he did test out really well between the combine. And so he will go in the first round. But yeah, I would like to trade back if we're going the Penning rate. I mean, just trade back and pick between Penning or Rainman at that point. Can't go wrong either way there. Tyler Muir, cool to see some of the fans that have only been around since 2014 showing themselves the door. I have been a fan since the early 2000s when I was a little kid. I remember all the losing seasons. I stayed loyal. Well, it's definitely, I think we've heard talk, Tyler, of people saying, I'm done, I'm out, I don't want to do this. We definitely have heard some of that. I will say this, in the last couple of weeks, my channel has seen more growth than at any other time in 3 years. And I'm not saying that to toot my own horn. I'm saying that because I think it's indicative of the fact that the Seattle Seahawks fans out there are paying very close attention to the situation, and they're trying to make sense of it and get answers, which to me speaks to them caring and them being invested, and that it's not a bandwagon situation. But in actuality, they may say that. They may say, if we trade Russell, I'm out. If this, but that's something that they say emotionally that sounds good and feels good to say, but they are truly those fans that ride or die with their team. They bleed the blue and green. And I've been encouraged in seeing that, not just because I like the channel's growth, but because to see the people as engaged as they are, despite being told, here's a turd, swallow this down. Oh, here's another one. Take that one down too. And they've actually dealt with it pretty good. Nah, Wavy says DK is not going to be 2 first rounds. Just saying, 1 but not 2, and a second round and more. If that's the case, Devante and Tyreek would have been more than a first rounder. Age is the factor into this. Nah, Wavy. I think that's the part you're not considering on this is age. Both of those two guys are going into being 30 years old sooner than they are later. DK's 25. A player that's 5 years younger. Just getting into his prime at that point. And as well with this, not Wavy, the other thing to consider with this is you're not paying the same that you're paying for Tyreek. You're not paying the same that you're paying for Devante Adams. Those guys in the contracts that they made, Devante at $28.5 million and Tyreek at $30 million, is not what DK is going to be paid, because whatever team controls DK has 3 years of cheap club control over him. So they're not held by the leverage game to have to then pay him. So you're getting DK, who's 5 years younger. You're going to pay him a contract that's going to pay him probably $5 million less per year than Tyreek Hill made. He's going to garner 2 first-round picks then in a trade, or the equivalent of. Let me be as simple. The equivalent of, if not 2 first-round picks. I know I have to say that because then something like the Russell Wilson happened trade, and then someone comes in and goes, you said 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson. We got the equivalent of 3 first-round picks. So, yes, and I was right. And as I was right on that Russell Wilson situation, when people were calling me crazy about getting the equivalent of that value mid-year when Russ was sucking, and everybody's like, look at how bad he is now. We'll never get that value back. So too am I right on this DK situation. And that if he does get moved, he would be worth that. GoHawks 2022 with a $9 donation. Thank you, GoHawks 2022. Says, be something to see DK playing on KC, playing Russ twice a year. That would be interesting. And how about Seattle at that point? They get the 2 first-round picks back for the Chiefs, and then they also put the Broncos a little bit more behind the 8 ball as far as their win total goes, which then improves their draft positioning. 4D chess, baby. 4D chess. Well said, though, GoHawks 22, and thank you for the donation on that. It would be Mahomes and DK would certainly be a wonderful fit between those two guys. Daniel W. says Anthony Richardson might be QB1 next year, only 20, true junior, some skill set, as well leave us 3 years younger. Yeah, I think there's going to be some guys, Daniel, that come to the forefront here. There's not going to be just the guys we know of right now. I think there'll be more added on, and maybe those guys fall away that we're talking about. Maybe Young doesn't fill out and improve and go forward. Same thing with Stroud. UE2K, I'm only anti-pay DK if you don't have the weapons that go with DK. If he's going to be the only star offensive player, let him go. Keep if you can't get top dollar this offseason and trade him next year. Well said, man. Again, I don't think we're driven after to move him this year if we don't get the value. Go Sands says Seahawks should look into Bijan Robinson in the 2023 draft. All right, we got another name there. Harris Schaub, I feel like y'all should pay DK as a Niner fan. If you don't, feel like you lose your one true gem. Well said, man. I'm pounding this drum. I'm trying to make it happen. UE2K says DK is nowhere near the wide receiver that Terrell Owens was. That's crazy. He doesn't high point the ball. He's a body catcher and doesn't have the lateral quickness. Can't be an elite wide receiver without a great hands. He's a number 2. Okay. Let's go take a look at the first 3 years of these guys' career. And again, understanding there's some things like you don't factor in on this. I think that you're kind of not looking at. Let's take a look at Terrell Owens' first 3 years in the sport. So let's see here. Let's see. See if I'm crazy. So year one, 96. 16 games played. 97, 16 games played. 98, 16 games played. Okay. So Terrell Owens in his first year had 520 yards receiving. Played 16 games, 520 yards. 97, he had 936 yards. Okay. He didn't crack 10 touchdowns receiving until his third year. He didn't crack 1,000 yards until his third year. Guess what? In his fourth year, he didn't crack 1,000 yards. So Huey, his first 4 seasons, Terrell Owens didn't even crack 1,000 yards, but one time in 4 years. DK Metcalf has basically run 3 straight years of 1,000 yards almost. 900 in his first year, 967 this year. So you want to knock me 130 yards, go for it on that. But his production has been superior to Terrell Owens' first 3 years in his production. So I don't know, maybe you're going to give all that credit to Tyler Lockett's attention that he's allowing DK to run free, but then Terrell Owens was there at the same time as Rice, so we can play that game back that same way. But I think you're maybe overrating Terrell Owens, and again, underrating the fact that DK Metcalf came into this sport at a very young age, right? He's one of those 20-year-old guys when he first came in the NFL. He's not like DK Eskridge, who came in at 24, right? So we got to build that in our way of our trajectory for the player and how we see where he's going to go and where his top end is. And you would expect with a younger guy like that, maybe we're not going to get the full top end of that right out the gate. And for the fact that he's been as productive as he is, as he's on this ascending trek, is what impresses me as much about anything as anything with him. But yeah, dude, he's right with Terrell Owens as far as their early production. And I'm not the only guy to make that comparison with him. I also don't remember Terrell Owens being an absolute monster at high pointing the ball either. Same sort of situation with going to the body catching styling of it. That's why it draws a comparison in my mind, is because Terrell wasn't necessarily as much that hands guy that goes up there and just plucks it. Fighting Puma, I just joined. Is there any update on DK? No real update of significance. Carroll said they're going to try to get a contract done with him before the start of training camp, but that certainly doesn't mean anything. Hawks fan, I don't want to trade DK at all. Do you think we will have to extend him by this fall? I don't think we have to, Hawks fan, but I do think that if you don't get him extended by this fall, that probably means he's being traded next offseason. So I think that if the hopes are to keep him here long term, it has to happen before the start of training camp. Cat Lady, the way they've been letting players go, I wouldn't be surprised if they start selling jerseys with Velcro numbers. Well said, Cat Lady. Mark Death says, should Hawks bring in Myles Gaskin for cheap, considering the Dolphins seem to have no respect for him? Yeah, I like Myles. He's a good player. So it seems like we got our two-headed back. They're going to roll with Carson. They're going to roll with Penny. So we seem to be pretty good at running back at this point. RG Cunningham, trade him for a player and a picks, make it a total restart. Okay. Cliffick says, what's the team to beat next season? Well, I think the Rams are definitely there. Tampa Bay, Kansas City, San Diego, Buffalo Bills. Those are probably your top mark teams. Maybe Cincinnati in there. Is Kalani still available? Yes, B. He is. I don't know if Seattle has the money to pay him anymore. Peter Sports Car, Brandon. Yeah, Coral's Pro Day wasn't very good. I haven't looked at it quite yet, but I'm not going to be shocked if it wasn't. And my evaluation of Coral is where it is. And as I've said, that's my worst case scenario right now for our quarterback position going into this upcoming season. I'll ride with Cap 18 games with Kaepernick. I happily with a smile on my face versus going and drafting Matt Corral. That's how bad that'd be. Alexander says Eskridge needs to step up, Brandon. He just needs to fit into his role. But I mean, it's just he's got a specific role in this team. He's just got to stay healthy and fit into it. But for him, it's health, and that's a big question mark. Jeff Rans, my man from Montana. How you doing, Jeff? He says, what's up, Brandon? Interesting waters our team is getting into. Glad to catch the stream tonight. Well, thanks for jumping on in here. And yeah, they are definitely, they're still marching to their own beat, Jeff. You know, They're out there doing the John Bottom double stroke there. Just well, everybody else is just kind of one time in a bit here. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see if that bears out the results. Mark Death, it'll probably be better for Hawks if we don't have to take our quarterback in the first 2 picks, because I'd assume we'd win enough to be around pick 10 or so. Agreed. I'd like us to not take the picks in that stance. Getting 2 high picks next year is a possibility, especially if the Broncos don't necessarily do as good as everybody thinks. And the higher those picks are, the better of a chance you can go up and get your quarterback pick of the litter, basically. Seattle Dub 6 says the Jets Jingden just tagged DK on Twitter and said the door is open. DK responded, I heard it's cold down there. You better shut it. He's laughing out loud. I like the loyalty. I like the loyalty too. It's good to hear. Thank you, DK. Tell him what's up. Tell him what's up. Not here. Not today. I'm in Seattle. Sierra, like any good wife, should probably point out to Russ that he was carrying the team and the Seahawks weren't valuing you by building around you. Sierra is loyal to Russ, not Seahawks. Exactly. Well said. B. Eskridge must have had the worst concussion ever. Never seen someone be out for most of the year with that. Wonder if there was something else. I don't know, man. I don't know on that. They kept saying it was the symptoms of it. I'm not sure. I will say this. He had injuries going back to college, though, so maybe not his first concussion. And the more you get them, the more sometimes harsher they can be with that. Payday Sports Car says Matt Corral has no zip on his passes and no velocity. He does have an elite quick release, but that's it, and he's pretty accurate. Very well said, Pater. That's my evaluation of him as well. It's not that he's just completely trash. The quick release, the velocity inside of 15 yards is elite in this draft. It's better than anybody in this draft. Those 2 aspects of his game. But those 2 aspects of his game do not make it the quarterback. And unfortunately, the other parts of his game just aren't pro-ready, in my opinion. Hawks fan, we should trade Tyler Lockett to the Chiefs for a late first-round pick. I don't think you're getting a first-round pick for Lockett. I think the top end of the market on Lock is going to be a 3rd-round pick. Probably a late 3rd-round pick, which would be a Chiefs late 3rd-round pick. But you might see that. Daniel, if he has a great year next year, why wouldn't he enter the draft, make millions, or stay in college? Trey Lance came in at NFL at 20. Anthony Richards will be a similar situation. Yeah, there's nothing to stop him. If anything, you want to get that clock ticking as quick as possible as a young quarterback so you can get to that first big major market deal. We're seeing that with Kyler right now. So you get there as quick as possible. Get that clock starting. Hector Rivera says, DK the Jets for the 10th pick back. You got to give us more than that, man. I know it's a high first-round pick, Hector, but we're needing 2 firsts. We'll go a first, a second. We'll take your next year's 3rd and next year's... No, I want next year's 2nd, too. I want all my picks. It's like draft day. I want all my picks back. Go Science says, I would not mind if the Seahawks drafted Jermaine Johnson. Me neither. Fun player. Really fun player to watch on tape. I've been watching more and more of his games, and I just like him the more I watch. Byron D says, if Malik gets drafted before we have a chance, let's draft Sauce Gardner and start him with Trey Brown and our amazing safety duo. That'd be a pretty badass Byron secondary. Not to mention you got Artie Burns and you're bringing back Justin Coleman to help out in the slot. So yeah, you could put together a pretty good secondary at that point. Hawks fan, Will Anderson is something special for next year's draft. Probably right now, your number 1 guy on the board right now for next year's draft as it stands. It's kind of your de facto number 1 would be Will. Harris Schaub, how are the Chiefs going to pay DK when they couldn't pay Tyreek? Laughing out loud. They were willing to pay Tyreek Harris, so they had a price they were willing to go on to Tyreek. They did not want to go up to $30 million a year, which was what Tyreek's people were insisting on. Next man up, next guy above Devante Adams. So I want to be paid more than Devante Adams. Kansas City didn't want to go that high. So though Kansas City's not willing to go to $30 million a year, will they be willing to go to $25 million a year, which is probably about what DK is going to make on his next contract? Yeah. Since they were willing to go close, that's pretty close to 30, isn't it? So yeah, they had the money. They just didn't want to go that high. He says, I'm pro playing DK if he had Russ. Just don't think we're going to be good enough soon. Yeah. I understand, man. Like I said, I know I disagree with you on this, Yui, but I do get where you and folks like you are coming from with this thought process as far as it's logical and reasonable to take that other stance, even if I disagree with it. Well, Kyle, laughing out loud, Eagles don't deserve DK Metcalf. They took J.J. Arcega-Whiteside over him and then Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson. Shaking my head. It's the only way they can get a good receiver, man. They've always had a hole with wide receivers, it seems like. Grant Walter says Russ wants an MVP. No quarterback in a run-based offense has ever won an MVP. Russ knows this and wanted out. He did, Grant. I don't know if he exactly went to what's going to be a super high volume passing attack in Denver. They're going to run the ball quite a bit over there too with Javonte Williams. But yes, you are right there. Hector, just because you overpaid for Jamal doesn't mean we're overpaying for DK. Why not? We did right by you. Do solid by us now. We overpaid on one end. Turnabout's fair play. You know, you got the good end of that. Come on now. Let's make this fair. Grant, what would be a perfect draft? Ahmed Gardner and Jordan Reed? Jordan Reed. I know the Jordan Reed one there. More of a perfect draft for me, Grant, would be investing in the offensive line with 2 of the first 3 picks. That in itself would probably be a perfect draft for me because at least they're starting to like put assets into the offensive line, which they have ignored like a redheaded stepchild. Clivic, Seahawks received 2 for 3 FRPs and probably 1 or 2 FRPs other teams. I'm a Seattle fan, and I'm saying this to tell how much DK means to our franchise. Nice. DK does mean a lot to our franchise. Stay here, DK. Codified Vault, I hope we give DK to KC for 2 first-rounders. He deserves a stud quarterback. He does deserve to in that. I agree there. I want to see him get a guy that really knows how to feature him on the next guy, whether it's here or somewhere else. Russ doesn't get enough blame, says B, for Super Bowl blunder. Granted, the play was a bad call, but he threw the ball in a place where it could get picked, could have thrown the ball lower or away. Yeah, maybe a little bit. I mean, we've learned with Russell's game that that's not necessarily his strength of his game is throwing short and throwing accurately short. I think that the pick play route, though, is one where you are sort of throwing, you've got to just throw to a spot and trust your guy's going to get there. And his receiver got blown up and didn't get there. The pick got destroyed by Brandon Browner. But, yeah, it was, you know, there's a lot on that play call. There's a lot of people with a lot of opinions on that play call with where it is. Grant Walters says Meyer, Jordan Davis. Oh, okay. So you were saying Ahmad Gardner and Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis isn't getting out of the first round. Jordan Davis isn't going to get out of the first 20 picks. So he's not going to last in the second round. If he lasted in the second round, would it be a dream? Sure. To be able to get him in the second round. But I would still, Grant, lean towards give me a couple offensive linemen in the first 3 picks. Hector Rivera says Hill didn't even go for 2 firsts. That's because, Hector, the situation doesn't work like I think sometimes fans think this work. Tyreek Hill has these stats. Tyreek Hill's so much better involved, so he goes. What factors into this decision-making also is how much the player is getting paid and then what his age is at. And when you get to around the age of 30 in the NFL, you start to be looked upon as not the same way you're looked upon when you're 25 years old in the NFL. You can call that ageist or whatever it is. It's just the way it works. So when it comes to why Hill didn't go for 2 ones, and I would offer Hector that when you really look at the value he got, the totality of all the picks, it's a little bit of an equivalency situation, Hector, where you got to go, okay, he didn't get 2 firsts, but he got a first and a second and a third and a fourth. It's pretty close to the 2 first-round picks as far as commiserate value. But again, the differences between DK and Tyreek Hill are age, about 4 years, 5 years difference in age there, and then also the pay. Tyreek Hill is going to want the $30 million a year contract that he got paid by the Miami Dolphins. With DK Metcalf, you're not going to have to go up to $30 million. So you get DK at less a contract cost and as a younger player. That's why he's going to go for those if you trade him. Colorado Pet Patrol, and the channel growth is great. It is great. I love it. I love it. Herbicide, DK would be a waste of talent for Zach Wilson. Yeah, I'm not sold on Wilson either. Governor Party tits. And no, don't trade him. We see what he can do with an actual quarterback who threw in the middle of the field. Little Geno love there, huh? Yeah, agreed. I think that there's still more potential with him too. I think he's just scratching the surface. U2K says, Russ threw the ball where it was supposed to go. Wide receivers don't make their block or fight hard enough to get to the spot. Should have run play action and bootleg and in untouched. I agree with you there. I'm not throwing any, on that Russell pass, I can't throw any shade his way in the Super Bowl game. I don't put that on Russ at all. To Huey's point, that should have been a rollout, one read, rollout. You maybe give him two reads, throw it away, or try to run it in. That should have been the play call. But it wasn't Russ on that one. Megan says, I've often wondered if I would ride with this team, as you know, due to time differences and the like. I've continually been called a bandwagoner being an Aussie, but my heart and loyalty lies here. I love it, Megan. I love it. And I know it does. Lorraine Johnson says, we're going to go 2-15 and beat the 49ers twice. So the season will be a success is what you're saying, Lorraine? Daniel, all right, I'm going to get a little more coffee here. Folks, we are going to be around a hard out here about 9 o'clock or so today. Sorry, we're going to do a little 3-hour show today. I'm going to be back on Thursday. But one second, I'm just going to pour some coffee. So bear with me 1 second. Oh, yeah. So we got a little bit of a hard out. Not a hard out at 9, but a pretty soft, semi-hard out at 9. Colorado Pred Patrol says it's not going to be 2 first-round picks. And we'll see if I'm wrong on this. And again, to the folks saying it's not going to be first-round picks, remember again, I was a guy that I fought for about a year on the channel here telling people that Russell was going to be worth the equivalent of 3 first-round picks. And that's basically what you got for Russell Wilson. So understand, I've been on the mark with this in the past when I made these type of predictions. I've been pretty close to on the nut with it. I don't usually just pull this stuff out my behind. It's usually operating from a point of thinking it through and looking at these recent deals and how they worked. But we'll see. Hopefully we don't see it commence. So hopefully we never know. Puff says, Wilson never really used DK as a wide receiver 1. He should have been throwing dimes into double coverage. Suck up your pride if you get a pick. Russ isn't willing to take a chance. It hurts his legacy in his view. I think he's a guy that wants to see it wide open when he throws it. That's just Russell's style of play. And I don't think that always lends itself well to your point on really working a number 1 wide receiver consistently. Hector Rivera says Jets will be better than the Seahawks even in a harder conference. Probably. Success over happiness says Mahomes and DK would destroy. Probably, yeah. Falu Nadaya says DK to the Ravens. We need him now. No, you don't. Lamar's not going to be able to work at the DK in any way, shape, or form. Lamar needs like 6'8" tight ends that have a mile-high catch radius. John Kurtz says, I've been a Seahawks fan since 1996, back when we really were in the dumbs. I think we were a 500 team with Locke. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, John. I love the, hey, man, I mean, if you go 500 with Locke, that would be impressive. I think you're going to be somewhere near. I think it's like a 7-win team. That's close, though. So, I think you're on the mark. Haraya, Harris Schaub, damn, is he behind the chat? Harris, I am behind the chat. We're getting a lot of new people here because, like I said, the channel growth's been amazing the last couple of weeks. For you folks new in the chat, I tend to try to respond to everybody in the chat or as many people as I possibly can. Lately, I'm not doing as good a job with that because I've just been not able to go as long quite as much. But I do tend to go longer on my stream and channel because of the fact that I try to respond to most of the people in the chat as I can. So if I don't happen to hit your chat quick, that's kind of my reasoning. Perez says, I think the Seahawks should draft Charles Cross. I like me some Charles Cross. He's a good player. He's a real good player. Elijah Will Shoemaker, is DK going to be traded? I think it's still uncertain, Will. I think it all depends upon whether or not he gets a contract extension done prior to the start of training camp. If not, you might be looking at, you're likely looking at his last season as a Seattle Seahawk. Slash, if there was a team that came around the trade deadline that wanted to give you a gargantuan haul, you might pull the trigger at that time. So while he is right here, and I hope he does remain, there is a chance here that this could come down the track, especially with the wide receiver salaries exploding right now. Mariah C. Brandon, you should pick the players for the team, laughing out loud. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't turn down the job. Paul Third says DK to Packers will expose him for sure. Not even close to the route runner and catcher of Adams is. Yeah, I don't know if that'd be a good scheme for him, Paul, necessarily. I think more of a Mahomes type quarterback is the guy you want to match him up with a little bit. A little more of the gunslingery kind of guy than and I know Rodgers could be considered a gunslinger, but they're more of just the on time stuff with their thing that works its best. It seems like when they're just working the 3 and 5 step drop type stuff, ball out of his hand. Paying Disley $24 million. We better be using a lot of 2 tight end sets with Fant on the roster. Well, let me give you a little bit of assurance on this part. Last year, you ran the 10th most amount of 2 tight end sets in the entire NFL. You did so while running the least amount of total plays offensively in the entire NFL last year. So what that stat will tell you is that if you were even midway, if you were even a team with the 15th most amount of plays, you would have run the most 2 tight end sets in the entire NFL. So it's absolutely germane that we have good tight ends on this roster and that we have a little bit of depth there too, as we do with Parkinson. Codified Vault says trade DK to the Chiefs for 2 first-rounders. So I think it's possible. Randall says DK came in young and also didn't get great quarterback play in college. Very true. Very true. Colorado Ped Patrol, DK will not get 2 firsts. That's insane. Oh, I can look at my own history of my own ball club, Colorado Ped Patrol. So here in Seattle, this situation played out not 20 years ago. We had Joey Galloway. I just mentioned Joey Galloway, Steve Largent, great starts to their career, dynamic starts to their career, look like game changers. Well, when he was due to be paid right about the same time here, the DK is about to be due to be paid, we flipped him for what? What did we flip Joey Galloway for? Was it a first and a third? Was it a second and a third? Was it a second, a third, and a fifth? No, you got 2 first-round picks for Joey Galloway. So it's the time. It's all about timing on this. I've made my arguments pretty succinctly as to why he would draw 2 first-round picks in return, but it would be the going rate. That would be the going rate. DK says if DK continues this level of production, he's a Hall of Famer. DK is a physical freak, but to me, he's a one-trick pony. He can't catch with his hands and lacks lateral quickness. I can't say that enough. Okay. Is he leading the league in drops, Huey? Is he like does he have a high level of inefficiency in his catch rate? If I go and I match up Huey 2K, DK's catch rate, which factors in drops, of course, right? Go measure up DK, his catch rate, with guys like Randy Moss or Julio Jones or any number of wide receivers who aren't questioned with their hands. He's right there with them. Right there with them in that efficiency. And I don't see the lateral quickness past you pointing to a 3-cone drill. When I go out there and watch him on the football field, I see him running good routes. I think I see his route running improving. I don't see a lot of limitations to the way he's running his routes out there. It's like, oh, he just can't flip his hips. Oh, he just can't bend. Oh, he just can't come up out of his break well enough or smooth enough. I've been seeing all those things, at least on the tape I'm watching. Colorado Ped Patrol. So like I was just saying a second ago, I know that some people don't understand this in the chat. The people that come new on this chat, I try to respond to everybody in the chat. When I get hundreds and hundreds of people in the chat, as we have been getting lately, that's going to put me behind the chat. It's going to make it hard for me to respond quickly. As you can hear me, Colorado Ped Patrol, respond to your comments. I get your comments. It just takes me a little bit of time to do so because we have so many people in here. So I know a lot of YouTube streamers and people they just stick on the chat and they ignore half the messages that come through and don't really respond and they're half in. That's not the way I run my channel here. I don't go that direction with it. Again, Colorado Ped Patrol, there's a great baseline for this as far as value. I provided you an example of even my recent history in Seahawks here, where we had a receiver like DK that we got 2 first-round picks for. So it's happened in recent history. If it's happened once, it's highly, highly possible it could happen again. He's at the very least on an equivalent level of value to where Tyreek Hill is, especially when you factor in the age, especially when you factor in he's going to cost less. I'm making a pretty good argument on this. The folks that are saying there's no way DK gets paid 2 first-round picks, you're going to need to qualify that then. provide me some backing and proof from your standpoint on it. I'd say that, but we are going to be wrapping this up relatively soon. So, but that's where I stand. Randall McDaniel with a $5 donation says, with a bounty of picks, a boatload of cap space, and a few things fall our way, we can set up another decade of success. We can, Randall, especially if I think they stick more to their blueprint, which is the blueprint going forward here, which is let's try and do what we did in 2012 and 2013 and 2014. Let's get a quarterback on a rookie contract, not costing a tremendous amount of the cap, and then build the super team around him. And let's stick to that model. Let's not deviate from it just because we get our quarterback as the next guy up to be paid at that point. And we can do that by building a strong running game and a defense, and then allowing that quarterback to come in and accentuate that in what he brings. I can see their approach on this, Randall, and it's a smart approach in that it's worked before. And it's only when they deviated in paying Russell the amount of money they had that they couldn't provide that same kind of team around him. So, well said. You're putting yourself in a position, Randall, with their approach and their rebuild approach to put himself in a pole position to be able to take advantage of this rebuild and turn it around at its fastest, because you're not making bad decisions as far as giving up future draft capital, giving up future cap space. You're keeping both of those all the way opened up, which is beautiful. Corsos de Gutierrez with a $2 donation says, DK, $100 million, good or bad offer? I think that's what I started off with, Corso. That's where I think the numbers are at with it. 4 years, $100 million, $50 million guaranteed. That to me is the contract. That should get it done from DK's standpoint. He'd feel pretty good about that. He'll have another bite at that apple in 3 or 4 years. So that's good value to me. That's smart value to me, in my opinion. I like it. Alexander Traina says, I wouldn't pay anyone. I don't see the value in it anymore. Will Valdez, what value would you place in the number 1 overall pick? Not that much, Will. I mean, Hutchinson's a great player, but if you're talking about me giving up a future first-round pick to move up from 9 for the number 1 overall pick, I don't like Malik Willis. I don't think Malik Willis should be picked that high in the first as it is where he's going to be picked. I don't think he should be picked top 10. I don't think he should be picked top 20. So the only way you're going to have me usually trade up for a number 1 overall pick is if there's a quarterback there that far and away garners me going up and getting him there. And there's not this year, nor is there the game-changing talent there that pushes me in that direction either. I love Hutchinson. I think he'll be a fantastic player, but I don't think he's Nick Bosa level of impact as a pass rusher. Mark Death, if Adams stays healthy and Ken Norton doesn't somehow come back, I think Jamal is going to pay off. I mean, hopefully. We need to get some value out of that one. We need to get some value. Fighting Puma, what's my prediction for DK Metcalf? I think they get a contract done before the training camp starts. I think they get something done. I think they've given fans too many tough breaks this offseason. They give them another one with this. Alexander, Kirk Stemmer, trade back from 9, and if Tyler Linderbaum is still available to them, if he isn't, take Devante Wyatt. If they can get Linderbaum with the first pick, trade up Wyatt with their second-round pick. Kirk, I think that 3-tech is completely now off the board. I'm sorry to say that. I love Devante Wyatt. It's not that I don't like him, but you got to look at the situation. You just paid Al Woods money. You just paid Quentin Jefferson money. Poona Ford is currently making the most amount of money of anybody on this contract. His cap hit is the highest of anybody on this roster right now. You also brought in Shelby Harris from the Broncos as a 3-tech pass rusher. So to my count, that means you're sitting on 4 defensive tackles right now when you normally only carry 3 on your game day roster. So you're not going to go get another one at this point. Linderbaum, I like your idea. He's as clean a prospect as you'll find in this draft. He'll come in and upgrade the center position in a way that we haven't seen here in years. So I would love for them to do that. Not to mention Kirk Dodd then give him an additional second-round pick. So love it. Alexander says, Brandon, haven't you had your fill of DK talk? I'm full. I couldn't take another bite. Well, we're wrapping up here soon. So, we'll be wrapping up this year real quick. But yeah, I did think we had to get into it. We had to get into it a little bit. Hal 9000, I need Jimmy gone so we can pay Debo before the price keeps going up. You guys also need to stop using Debo so much like a running back. I'm sorry. I know that worked for you in the playoffs, but you guys got to start protecting him a little bit. You're going to cut his career short if you try to get him up in that 250, 300 touch range every year. Jimmy's going to go. The quarterback market's settling out now. Once the Baker domino falls, Hal, then Jimmy will go next. You're not getting, I don't think, the second round pick for him, though. I will be gobsmacked if Jimmy Garoppolo pulls in a second round pick. MTS Jing says, "What's my prediction for the Seahawks record-wise? 7-10, as it stands right now. And you're actually a worse team than 7-10 as you sit with your roster. But what I'm anticipating is that the opponents are not going to be that hard next year. We have a last place schedule." LTLT says, "Complete the estate sale and get picks for the future." So as I say, LT, though I disagree with the approach of moving DK in that realm, I can understand it. If you're in rebuild, then fully embrace the rebuild. Go all in on it. All in. Which means that we're not leaving that wall up or taking that wall down too. But I like that wall. I don't care. It's going down. So I can see where you're coming from with that. Will Valdez, the Chiefs and Packers have reportedly contacted the Seahawks in regards to wide receivers DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. Both of those teams have traded away their top wide receivers in the last week. They're going to be calling. It's going to continue. Expect to see these rumors, guys. I'm getting out ahead of this a little bit, but expect to see this stuff percolate a little bit. In Utero says DK would definitely return 2 first-round picks. Thank you, In Utero. It's going to happen, and I've made my case for it. I've yet to hear anybody make a strong case as to why he wouldn't net that. Michael Collins, Seahawks probably go 0-17. Brutal schedule. Seahawks defense really weak. Front 7 on defense. Bunch of tier 3 in the secondary. Jamal Adams, Jordan Brooks. I don't know if we're going 0-17, but Michael, I can see that happening. I can see you going not good. You've definitely taken it down this year. Merck says, if DK can't catch and he has no route running, why do teams want him? Very, very well said. Very well questioned. Joshua Schneider, DK with Rodgers, probably like 85 catches, 1,300 yards, and 13 touchdowns. I agree. Hector Rivera says, you got 3 first-round picks for Russell because the Broncos were desperate. That's right, Hector. Correct. But that was also built into my prediction of it. And Hector, just like there are folks right now that are, you guys are being respectful, so it's all good. But I mean, just like there's folks right now pushing back against me about getting 2 first-round picks for DK. I got pushback for months broaching the subject of Russell getting 3 first-round picks. No way. And then it happens. And then, I sit here and I go, well, see, guys, I told you. See? And this is going to be another one of those same situations where if he doesn't sign, we're getting the 2 equivalent first-round picks. And again, just for your same reasoning, Hector. Why? Because there will be a team that is desperate. The desperation drives this part of it too, doesn't it, Hector? Decisions making isn't just made in the NFL in a vacuum, where everybody's calmly sitting there measuring out every approach. Sometimes you're a team like the Packers and you're like, man, we were going to offer Devante everything he wanted contractually. We thought that that'd be enough for him. We'd go, God, you guys are going to reset the market for us here in Green Bay, but he still wanted out. We didn't anticipate that. Well, damn. We need to go get a quarterback because, look, we just married ourselves to Rodgers and we're a go-for-it-now approach. We can't have 2 slot receivers and 1 outside guy and then hope the rookies coming in are going to get it done. That's not going to work for a team in the go-for-it-now approach. Does that not drive desperation there? A Kansas City Chiefs team that is watching the AFC West load up like no other loses one of their most vital, if not the most vital playmaker they have. And they're going to roll with the 2 back-end receivers. By the time they pick, you'll probably have seen at that point, Drake London's off the board. Wilson's off the board. You're probably to like the 5th guy, your 5th best receiver at that point where the Chiefs are picking with their first-round pick. That doesn't lead to some desperation, especially when you're looking at going, we need to compete next year. We need to go for it next year. Absolutely it does. So yeah, desperation drives part of this. But I'm also factoring that into my prediction, Hector. That's also as I come to the conclusion of saying it's 2 first-round picks. E. Gibson says Denver has been 30-51 the last 6 seasons, missed the playoffs every season, but as Bronco fans, they are Super Bowl contenders with Wilson now. Yeah, they're putting a lot of blame on the quarterback position, to your point on this, Gibson, when I think it does go a little bit beyond the quarterback position. Take their offensive line, for instance. We were initially told with the Broncos out the gate that this is such a vastly superior offensive line to what we're running, and he's going to cook behind that line. They were 28th last year in pass blocking. That's not good, especially when you have a quarterback that's going to hold the ball as long as Russ is going to hold it. You know, they do lose a couple of parts in this Russ trade on top of the draft picks in Fant and Harris. And while those guys may not be game changers in themselves, that's still that's a ding. That's a loss to that Bronco team from what it was prior year. Those were useful players for them that they now have to replace in value. So I agree. It's no guarantee now that the Cardinals that this team's going to somehow light it up here next year, being the Broncos. G Wolf says he ain't Galloway. I mean, again, they have almost just like with the Terrell Owens one. I'm looking up Joey Galloway's stats. They have equivalent stats to their first 3 years. So, I mean, okay. I mean, I don't know how not. You know, they're slightly different players, but they're also got a lot of similarities to their game. Joey Galloway was a guy that was not a route running guy. The reason that Mike Holmgren moved him out of town was because he didn't fit to the West Coast offense and the precision that he required in the route running. Much like everybody, some people are knocking DK in this chat and not having with his 3-cone, agility to run all those routes precisely. But it didn't hold Galloway back. It hasn't held back DK. There comes a point where your speed's just so freakish, you just have so many other things you're bringing to play that it can overcome maybe some slight deficiencies. But I disagree. I think he's every bit of where Galloway was. Jeff Rhines with the $10 donation. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate you, man. He says, I sure hope we can get it done and keep DK. Sure would be nice to keep a unique weapon, then find a quarterback. But if we trade him, get 2 first-round picks and build. Also, I'm still down to mod if you're good with it. Well, yeah, let me see if I can do this right now while I'm thinking about Jeff, because then let me just get it done here. We just knock this out here. I think if I click you here now, Jeff, I think I can. All right, Jeff, you're a moderator. There's a lot riding on this now, Jeff. There's a lot of responsibility. Okay, I don't want to oversell it here, but it's kind of a big deal now, Jeff. Kind of a big deal. Yeah, if you end up arriving there with DK, I wouldn't necessarily want to see it happen making this trade. But as I've told the people that I disagree on the chat here tonight that are in favor of doing this kind of move, I get where you guys are coming from. I could see the logic and reason behind it. It would not be a completely brain-dead maneuver, even though I disagree with it. So I can understand from that standpoint. You are in rebuild mode at this point. You are in rebuild mode. There's no doubt about it. They can talk all they want about being a competitive team next year, but that's not what they're showing in their actions. And that's okay. Like I've said, I'm embracing the rebuild. I, for one, have learned to embrace the thought of the bomb. How does that movie go? How I stopped worrying and learned to embrace, what's the Strange Love title? Ray Barrio is acquiring Russ and giving up valuable picks. The Broncos are following the new blueprint for winning. Yeah. I mean, it's been done once, Ray. It's not much of a blueprint if it's only been done once. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess kind of. They are trying to follow a kind of blueprint, but again, it's not one that's been done a ton either. You've also, for every Stafford that you have out there that's out there as a trade, right? You've also got a Phillip Rivers type situation going to the Colts, where it just peters out. The guy's at his end of his career, and you're not getting what you think you're getting. Joshua Snyder says the Packers have 22 and 28. Ooh, okay. So we got a little bit of a bidding war maybe between the Chiefs and the Packers at that point. I like it. See? All the more reason we'll get those 2 back. I'm telling you guys. John Moa, it says DK for 22 and 28 and a third next year. Sounds good. I'm with it, John. I'm with it. Mark says Broncos would be great if they take advantage of Williams at running back, if the defense can handle these other AFC teams and Wilson gets back to his old self. Yeah, they can still be dangerous. I'm not necessarily predicting their downfall by any measure. They got an uphill battle for sure. Dan W. Quentin Jefferson is an end in a 3-4, but if there's an elite D tackle they aren't passing up on them because they have average DTs on a 2-year deal. It's not happening. Also, those 2-year deals are 1-year outs. Agreed there, Daniel. They can get out from him. I would be surprised to see them move out of these contracts. I would be surprised to see them moving out of the contracts after just signing him. Though Boona, you could get out and save a little bit of money on his deal. So you could draft Wyatt and then I guess release Puna or trade Puna. That's a possibility for sure. I just think, Daniel, I tend to lean towards with so many other holes on this roster, specifically looking at the offensive line, linebacker, cornerback. I feel like they're going to be kind of driven a little bit in the draft towards needing to pick for certain needs at positions that they weren't able to get in the free agent period. I could be wrong on that, but that's just my given instinct on it. Demon Reacts says, I hope DK is going to the Chiefs. Tyree left us. Well, he didn't want to pay him, man. It's hard to pay $30 million. And it very well could happen. It very well could happen. Damn it. Herbicide says, we're going to keep DK 4 years, $110 million. I'd do it. John Moore, DK leaving Seahawks to protect his legacy. He learned that from Russ. Maybe John. We'll see. He seems kind of like a little guy to me. Megan says, how I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb bee. That's it, Megan. How I learned to stop worrying and love the rebuild. I'm coming to my play. It took me a while. Got to come around this. Got to come around to this point, Megan, right? A lot of Buddhist techniques being enacted, a lot of channeling my chakra, okay? But I'm finally getting there. I'm getting there. It's sad. I can't do this, Megan. It's horrible. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to win. No, I'm okay. I'm good. No, it's okay. I'm going to hold it together. It's going to be fine. I just can't. I can't do a rebuild. I don't want to suck again. No, I'm okay. We'll be all right. We're going to be strong on this one. Let's get there. Matthew Smith, please trade Lockett to the Jets. I'm good with that, Matthew. Give us a 3rd-round pick back. He's all yours. Hector Rivera, Seahawks GM, it's scared that Joe Douglas is going to swindle him again. Nah. He owed him a favor. There was a whole bar situation that happened in 98 with Douglas and Schneider. They don't talk about it anymore, okay? There was a blood oath that night that was not going to be discussed, but if one day both of them became general managers at one point or another, then Schneider had to do him a solid. So, now you know the whole story. Alexander Trina, Gaskin, and Parker are both awesome. They're good players. They're good. Alex Knight, I think another guy went to Denver and did pretty well also. Peyton Manning, we talking about that? Yeah, he did do well. Though you're not getting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Herbicide says, would you give up DK for the Sonics to come back? I probably would. I probably would. It is an MB team. I probably would, yeah. The Shadow Within, DK Killer Metcalf is staying with the Seattle. Trade Lockett. They already had drafted his replacement in Eskridge. I'm good with that, Shadow, and I'm not advocating for moving DK. We're just talking about the potentiality of it. Jim Page says the Jets have been in rebuild mode for 50 years, but you're getting around to it, Jim. They're just working their way around to get into that contender state, and once they get there, they ain't getting knocked off that spot. E. Gibson, I loved Gaskin at UW, one of my favorite all-time Huskies. Yeah, he's a fun running back to watch. His tape was awesome coming out. Just a little undersized, but just awesome back. Money Mike, I think we need a pass rush and secondary help. Keep DK and Lockett. Sounds good to me. Herbicide, we do need tackles, man. We do need tackles. Alejandro Verzuzco says, draft night is going to be lit. You better believe it. You know I'll be here, folks. We're going to be streaming all 3 days of the draft. Herbicide, he caught up. Wow. I got you guys. I caught up. I got there. And we are at 9:17, so I went a little bit over, and I do need to do a bit of soft out here, folks. So we are going to wrap this up. We'll get last of your comments and questions on in here, and then I will be back tomorrow with Brendan as we do our weekly show here on the channel. We'll do some more discussion on draft talk and stuff, so be tuning in for that, please. Corsos de Gutierrez with the $2 donation says, we signed an inside linebacker, Joel something. Your thoughts? Let me take a look and see what we got on the Twitter box. Let's see what the Twitter box has got to say about this. Oh, shoot. Sorry, guys. Let me turn off my volume. My bad. Who did we sign? So it's always Joel Lion Bayungahi. Lion Ungaba Uihe. I wouldn't take too much from that. Former 4th round pick out of the Bears. So this is a Sean Desai signing on this one. It's a camp body, Corsos. So, I wouldn't expect a ton out of him. Sean said, I like this guy. He's got something to him. Bring him on in here. It's another one like the Artie Burns signing where there's an indicator that Desai does have a little bit of some say here on going to bat for guys and then bringing them in to get this defense functioning the way he wants it functioned, as opposed to, hey, implement this defense and then we're going to give you a whole bunch of parts and pieces that don't fit into the defense that you're trying to apply. So that part's good to see in that respect. And hey, it was a 4th round pick, which is a relatively high pick. I'm never going to be able to pronounce his name right. I'll tell you that. That's like 10 syllables in that name, and none of them I can pronounce. So I'm just going to have to call him Joel Big Eye or something. one of those on that Corsos, you know what I mean? But yeah, 4th round, interesting. No, not a game changer, but interesting. Joshua Schneider says a 3rd round pick only. Is his contract bad or something? No, $14.5 million per year. As I understand it, Joshua, though, that you guys don't, as I've been talking about with like the DK stuff, this factors in. If we were eating all of the bonus money and moving Tyler, then I would maybe want to get more like a 2nd rounder. But being that I think if we get out from under the contract before a certain roster bonus hits in, if that's the case, then we are only hitting $7 million of dead money hit to move off from him. So at that point, you guys don't have to give us as much then in return, or whoever doesn't have to give us as much in return. And I think for a guy going to about 30 years old who's, posted some very good numbers, I think he's going to be more of a slot guy kind of moving forward a bit. He still can do some outside stuff, but it just seems like about right. Niner Stink says Lockett's got that Stephen A. Smith hairline now. He does, man. That thing's running backwards. Alexander says Lockett's old all of a sudden. Time flies. I swear he was just 22. I'm telling you, man, it gets quicker as you get older. It does not get better. It only goes faster. Danny W, on a positive note, these Hill-Adams trades boost Lockett's trade value. Locke is on a major bargain over the next 3 to 4 years for whoever gets him now in comparison. He is, yeah. If you're looking for just a guy you're not going top end, you're going just a little bit now to a solid number 2, but you're getting him at half the cost of paying one of these number 1s. You would think that might entice some of these teams out there looking for a receiver. Certainly the depth of the wide receiver, the depth of the wide receivers in this draft are going to affect this as well. No doubt about that. So that might calm a little bit of the market on the other side of things. But if you're a team that needs to compete now, like I said, you're the Packers, you go, okay, we're drafting a receiver. Well, is that receiver going to be ready to roll? Is he truly going to be ready to come here and work with Aaron and be productive? He's not going to be at Devante Adams out the gate, but we need like 70% of what we had out of Adams with whatever receiver we bring. Are we confident that receiver, who's the 5th receiver on our board in this given draft, is going to supply that? This is what I think could lead them around back over to Lockett. Daniel says an underrated guy no one's talking about for Seahawks is George Karlaftis, 3rd highest pressure rate, 4.4% behind Aiden Thibodeau. He is 2.5 years younger than JJ, calling Hall of Fame version Michael Bennett. Ooh, going hard, Daniel. Going hard with it on that one. Best power rusher in the draft. Best power rusher in the draft. To your point, probably the most efficient pass rusher in the draft. He's going to go probably top 15. Wouldn't shock me if Seattle were to look at drafting him. He is an interesting cat. So I like him. I just wish he'd lean into his power a little bit more. He gets a little bit too finesse at times rather than just get to his power, which is really his bread and butter. Ricardo says, interesting conversation, Nick Wright, on Colin Cowherd's show about Russ and Lamar. I'll take a look at it, man. I haven't seen it yet, but I'll take a look at it. I'll give Nick Wright credit. He's a little bit on point with where he sees Russell at in his game right now versus where some other fans would be at who see the situation a little casually. UE2K says DK has bad hands and doesn't get open quickly, and neither does Lockett anymore. Okay. What's the basing of the bad hands based off of? Are you basing it on drops versus other people in the league? Are you basing it on catch rate? Or are you just basing it on kind of your gut instinct and watching it is that you think he has bad hands? JL Martinez says DK is a future Hall of Famer. I agree. Joshua says, yeah, Lockett's a better version of Randall Cobb. Yeah, I think Cobb's really a guy relegated to the slot at this point, whereas Lockett can do some outside stuff. UETK says DK with his long strides takes too long to get open. With our bad offensive line, Russ spending more time looking at and for the rush. Yeah, I guess. I think you're stretching a little bit there, Yui. I think you're stretching a little bit on it, just a bit. But again, I know this is a spot where we'll disagree. We'll agree to disagree. Disagree. All right, well, we reached the end of the show here today, folks. Got a nice little 3.5 hours in today. I'm going to be back tomorrow on Thursday. If you like what you're listening to, do me a favor, hit that like button. You're getting some of the greatest growth ever, and you know why? Because you guys are hitting that like button, showing up on other fans who are looking for good Seahawks content, showing up on their searches, and that's helping me out greatly. So thank you for doing that. Seeing the returns on that, as always, a ton of awesome support on the channel here with all the donations from all the folks, man. Just you guys are so awesome in that respect. Tomorrow we'll come back at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time with Brendan from Seahawks, Brendan Nelson, and we will be taking a look at a little bit more of the draft. We're going to look at some possibilities too in trading back, what you could get value-wise, who you'd be looking at if you were to trade back, kind of some of the options our Seahawks have as we'll be coming up into this draft for which way they could kind of be going. So we'll be diving in a little bit of that on tomorrow's show. Some great discussion today on the DK talk. And I will say this, even on the folks, again, I like to just make sure I harp on this. I know sometimes because I really want to make sure it's really clear and on point with this, that I welcome the disagreement on this channel. And this is why I raised this subject today and why I try to pick certain topics like this when we have this discussion, because they are, to me, the meatiest discussions we can have as Seahawks fans at this point in time. They're about our future. They're about the best direction for the future. And that's the stuff that gets us all geeked up as far as really getting into the details and the idiosyncrasies of looking at how to build rosters. And so that's part of why I wanted to broach this, and part of why as well is I think this is a decision that this front office is turning over right now and trying to figure out what they're going to do. So it'll be interesting to see what direction they do go. It's a little bit of a ticking clock on this. The hourglass has been turned over. I think if we don't get to training camp and we have a new deal, that means we're probably looking at maybe only one more year, if only maybe a half a year, of DK Metcalf in a Seattle Seahawks uniform, which would be sad from my standpoint. I hope we keep this kid. He's had the best start to a receiving career of any player in Seahawks history up until this point. I think he is just scratching the surface. He is still very young. Yes, it's a lot to pay. Yes, it makes it harder in certain respects, but you're not having a lot of guys in this roster you're paying a whole lot of money to right now. And you don't have a lot of future money wrapped up into a lot of different players. So if I'm looking to wrap around one guy, young guy, superstar, just coming into his own, that's the kind of guy that I'm going to be willing to invest in for that future time when we're going to be that competitive team. Folks, the signs are here. We're looking at them dead in the eye. I can't lie to you. I can't lie to you, and I wouldn't want to lie to you. But we're all seeing the signs. Yeah, they're telling us they're going for it. Yeah, they're saying we're going to be competitive. We don't got any tackles. Defense is kind of rebuilt. We don't know what it's going to be. You got holes across the board to a degree. It's going to be a tough year next year. But the place that I will say you need to operate from, or the hopeful place I hope you can get to and operating from, is being optimistic, hopeful, and understanding this is a process. And because the team maybe is now starting to show signs of taking the long-term view process of it, of not trying to short sell this, take the shortcut to get this rebuild done faster, to placate fans, but in actuality to do it properly. That's the road to the best potential for success. There's no guarantees. You can make all the right decisions in football and then have half a roster get injured, or have somebody run their Ferrari to 125 mile an hour drunk and it throws your whole season into disarray. Stuff can happen. But the teams that tend to be the teams that stay up in that top point, stay competitive, stay elite, are those teams that are usually more often than not making smart decisions. And right now the smart decision is to be a rebuilding team, is to not go for it, is to be patient, get us into the next year with a lot of cap space, a lot of draft capital, and let's roll. Let's roll. So even as we rebuild, let me remind you, and don't you ever forget, not in a rebuild and not right now. We need you right now, Seahawks fans. We need you to ride with this team. This team needs you to ride with this team. Support them, be patient, and we'll get to the end of this tunnel and maybe right back to maybe even potentially raising Lombardi's once again, dare I say. Thank you to everybody out there for watching. Don't forget in this rebuild, keep the faith with me, my brothers and sisters, because the dark is always most darkest before the dawn. However it goes, that. And we're round to the mark. We've gotten past 12 o'clock, okay? We got a couple more hours of darkness. But dawn's coming. Dawn's coming. Ride with me on this now. Dawn's coming. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. I thank you guys. And don't you ever forget, never forget. Don't you do it. Don't you do it. Go Hawks.